TV to watch our election coverage. But in the meantime, we'll see you back here on TV for 12 News at 9.
It's election night in Arizona. The campaigning is over. Now your voices will be heard. The tightly contested battle for governor between Katie Hobbs
We are exactly where we thought we would be in terms of the closeness of this race.
and Kari Lake.
And we are going to take back Arizona.
The race for Senate that could determine control of Congress. Incumbent Mark Kelly.
We always knew that this was going to be very competitive.
The challenger, Blake Masters.
We've got the momentum. I'm the underdog, but we're going to win.
And some of the state's most impactful races. Secretary of State, who will control Arizona's election process, and Attorney General, the showdown for the state's top prosecutor, plus the local races and ballot initiatives that impact your community. Tonight, the entire 12 News team live, ready to bring you results and reactions. Decision 2022, 12 News coverage of the midterm elections starts now.
Tonight is the night for Decision 2022, and all eyes are on Arizona.
12 News has you covered with live team coverage on all the big races, and we are committed to bringing you comprehensive, up-to-the-minute reporting on this all-important election.
And right now, we're already starting to see those numbers roll in from across the state. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kariba Divine.
Good to have you along. I'm Mark Curtis. We'll bring you those numbers as they begin to drop, and as Karibe mentioned, they are starting to come in on this very important night.
All right, but we're going to kick things off with Team 12 political insider Bram Bresnick with the most important topics as we await those results to come in. Bram.
Yeah, let's start with the courts already getting involved in today's election right here in Maricopa County. It's because of the equipment issues experienced at several polling locations earlier today, which led to long lines for some voters. A judge denied a motion by Republican lawyers to extend polling hours at Valley polling locations until 10 o'clock tonight. Here's a portion of what the judge said in his ruling.
The court does not have any evidence to the contrary that there were 223 vote centers open and that no one who showed up between the hours of 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. have been precluded from turning in a ballot, whether it's an actual ballot or a provisional ballot. The declarations from the court's perspective do show that although there might have been some confusion and some difficulties, that all the individuals in the declarations filed either a provisional ballot or a direct ballot vote.
The judge basically ruling no voters were harmed. Now, even with that ruling, according to state law, anyone in line at a polling spot by 7 o'clock tonight will be allowed to cast their ballot.
All right, Graham, thanks. It's time to talk results. And again, this is in the very early going of this evening, but you can see Katie Hobbs, and this was expected because of the way people in Arizona tend to vote by mail. A lot of Democrats are in favor of voting by mail, whereas their Republican counterparts prefer voting in person. They were the ones largely waiting in line today at polling places across the state, and you can see Katie Hobbs, and this is what they can call a blue mirage. It may not hold up, but she has the lead right now over Kari Lake.
All right, looking at the race for U.S. Senate, and the polls all along were showing this one neck and neck. This is Mark Kelly, the Democratic incumbent, trying to hold on to his seat here. Of course, you know Mark Kelly is a NASA astronaut. He is a Navy fighter pilot going up against his Republican opponent, who's a venture capitalist and author, Blake Masters. Blake Masters is falling quite a bit behind right now, 41.3% of the vote. The incumbent, Mark Kelly, is leading this U.S. Senate race right now at 56.4%.
Secretary of State, the head elections official for the state of Arizona, Adrian Fontes, with the lead, a sizable lead over his Republican challenger, the Trump-endorsed candidate, Mark Finchem, 58 to 41%.
All right, moving on to the race for Attorney General. The Democrat Kris Mayes is currently leading this race right now, 55.3%. She is leading over her Republican candidate, who is also Trump-endorsed. This is Abraham Hamadeh, a former prosecutor and also an intelligence officer in the Army right now. He is 44.7% of the vote.
Arizona Superintendent of Public Instruction, the incumbent, Kathy Hoffman, with a lead, although not a big one, over Tom Horn, who once held this position, 55 to 44, almost 45%.
The race for Arizona State Treasurer, the incumbent is Kimberly Yee. She is holding on to a lead right now at 51.8%. Martin Quesada is 48.2%, falling behind Kimberly Yee.
Arizona Corporation Commissioner, we picked two of them, and right now the two Democrats are leading it. Again, this is in the very early going. So if you're tuning in, I'll repeat what I said just a few minutes ago, and that is voting habits in Arizona. Democrats tend to vote by mail. They like the early voting. Republicans prefer to hold off and vote on Election Day for whatever reason. And you can see that right now, it's the Democrats in the lead.
That's right. Let's take a look at the office of Maricopa County Attorney. Right now, Rachel Mitchell is the acting county attorney. She's in that position after the resignation of the late Alistair Adele. Her opponent is a Democrat, Julie Gunnigal. She is leading this race at the moment, 53.4%. Rachel Mitchell bringing in 46.6%.
All right, so what do these early numbers really mean? Can you put any stock in what we're seeing right now? Joining us is our political insider, Bram Resnick.
All right, Bram, and first up, let's talk about these governor race numbers coming in.
Well, let's talk down the line where Democrats lead every race. I can say with some confidence that will not hold through the evening. It's highly unlikely there's going to be a Democratic sweep. But again, remember where these votes are from. 1 million, I'm looking at the numbers over there, cheating a bit. 1 million total votes cast. We're expecting about 2.5 to 2.8 million total ballots cast in this election, so a lot of ballots left to count. Most of the ballots you're seeing, these are early ballots, and Democrats had a significant lead over Republicans in turnout for those early ballots, a very significant lead. And the question for many of us was, can Republicans make it up in the day of voting today and among the early ballots that were dropped off today? They're still yet to count. So despite some of those large leads you're seeing, what we've seen in the past is they slowly vanish, either to a slim victory or a tie. In Arizona, candidates generally don't win statewide races by 10 points, especially if you're a Democratic candidate.
And we have seen, not only here in Arizona, Bram, but across the country, tremendous voter turnout today.
We have, and you saw the lines here today, and those lines were certainly a result of some of the equipment issues at these polling places. On the other hand, we were expecting long lines because of Republicans showing up on Election Day. They've been kind of trained to do that over the last couple of years, basically because you have Republican leaders like Donald Trump and others saying, don't trust early ballots, go to the polls, drop your ballot off, or cast a ballot in person. A lot of the distrust that's been sown over the last several years is in play right there. Democrats flip, they just get them in, get their ballots, send them in right away. So we'll be watching closely what happens not just tonight, but over the next few days to really get a sense of who is indeed in the lead. A big number we're looking for is what's the total turnout? We don't know that yet. That gives you an idea of where the candidates are and whether they can actually make up the lead. Are there enough ballots left to count to make up the lead?
All right, Bram Resnick in the studio standing by. You're going to be with us all night long for hours and hours and hours.
Right here.
All right, we'll see you in a few minutes, Bram.
Well, as we await the numbers, the ballots are being counted in a very important spot. It's a spot that has received some consternation today because of problems with the printers. The Maricopa County Tabulation and Election Center in Phoenix.
And that is where we find Team 12's Bianca Bono, who is reporting for us tonight.
And Bianca, the day started with some pretty significant equipment problems. We mentioned the printers. Have those been fixed?
Mark, they have been fixed, and I just looked at the clock. I can't believe it's only 8:15. It feels like it's been a very long day for folks here at the Maricopa County Elections Department already, and really the night is just getting started because, as you mentioned, the results that you guys just talked about are all coming right out of this building. And we just heard from Chairman Bill Gates a few minutes ago. He wanted to address the media shortly after the judge decided to deny the RNC's emergency motion to extend polling hours until 10 p.m. Of course, they did close at 7 o'clock clock. That's why we're seeing those results now. But the source and the reason that they filed that emergency motion was because there were some printing issues. They were at 60 different voting centers across Maricopa County, and I am told by Chairman Gates that all 60 locations were fixed by the time that polls were closed. We want to give you a look. Not much happening, of course, in the room behind me here, but this is to give you a sense of the feel here at the County Elections Department. But again, Chairman Gates said it's been a very busy for his team tonight, and the issue lied with the printing, not with the tabulation machines. He said essentially the printers were not printing the marks on the ballots dark enough, so the tabulators on top of those election machines weren't reading them properly. Now, of course, voters did have the option to put their ballot in the slot, or what's being known as door number 3, for them to be brought to the tabulation center here to be counted either later tonight or early tomorrow morning. Chairman Gates also wanted to set some expectations for what's about to happen tonight. First of all, we're going to take a listen to a spokesperson shortly. One moment.
If you're out, you're out. We're out, yep. And please ask to use the restroom. There are going to be some B-roll opportunities to use the
So what
warehouse.
she's explaining is that the rules this election are a little bit different than in years past. She's saying that once the clock strikes 9 o'clock, guys, the media actually won't be able to come and go as we have in years past. But back to what Chairman Gates was saying, he also wanted to address the elephant in the room. Former President Donald Trump has called out Maricopa County, as have many others. There's a group of folks that are starting to gather outside, along with a massive police presence that are questioning what happened in Maricopa County today, and he wanted to address that. Take a listen.
We know that the eyeballs of the world were already on Maricopa County. We've known that for weeks. Obviously, we can see that from this room. So whoever wants to come here, that's fine. They have every right to be here. But again, there's nothing that happened here today that would indicate, in my opinion, a need to be out here, a need to address some injustice.
Gates emphasized the fact that he doesn't believe any voter was disenfranchised in Maricopa County today, despite those issues that they saw. And again, the night is really just getting started for the hardworking folks that are in the rooms behind me, guys.
Bianca, before we let you go, can I ask you a quick question? The judge denied the motion by the Republicans to extend the polling hours until 10 o'clock. Any reaction at the polling center to that ruling by the judge?
What Gates said was that he welcomes challenges in court to anything that happened in Maricopa County today, though he's confident that no voter was truly impacted. Everybody had the opportunity to cast a ballot today. But what he said, and he wanted to emphasize, is that he hopes that folks can respect the decision that the judge made. So again, that's really a message to folks across the country that are watching very closely what's happening in Maricopa County today.
All right, Team 12's Bianca Bono at the Tabulation Center. We've been covering long lines today, as we always see during election times. And this is something that happens not only here, but across the country. But because of the issues today, it created extra long lines at some of the polling locations on the edges of the valley.
That's right. Team 12's Adriana Loya is live up in Anthem with a look at the situation there. How are things looking there, Adriana?
Well, guys, an hour and a little bit more after the polling places closed, there are still people waiting in line here tonight in Anthem. And I'm told there's about 120 some people that still have to cast their ballot tonight that are waiting in line. Now, that's a very difference from what we saw earlier today, where there was about more than 300 people waiting from 2 to 3 hours here in this line. So we're going to take you through the pretty much the track of what people still have to go through to cast their ballot tonight. And this line stretches several storefronts. Some voters tell me they came late because they planned to come after work, and others tell me that they came earlier in the day but left because of the long wait times and wanted to come after at a later time. Now, despite the slow movement here, things for the most part have run smoothly. There was a minor argument between two people who were waiting in line, and I'm told a person who was driving too close to the 75 feet rule with candidate flags in the back of their truck was also asked to leave, but refused to do so. They eventually did leave. Now, this location did experience some of those equipment issues some of the equipment issues, but after a new tabulation machine was brought by the county, leaders say that things were resolved thereafter. Now, some people, as you can see here, are still waiting. It's still unclear to see how late they're going to be here waiting tonight, but stay with 12 News on air and online as we follow the continued developments on this election. Election Day. We're live in Anthem. Adriana Loya, 12 News.
Adriana, thanks. Let's head to another polling location that has seen long lines this evening.
Team 12's Erica Stapleton is live in Mesa. And Erica, what exactly is happening around you right now?
All right.
It looks like it was pretty quiet there for the most part, but she had been showing some pretty long lines earlier. We saw second floor. We had a ton of people that were waiting there. And again, as long as they were in line by 7 o'clock, they get the chance to vote, no matter how long it takes to cast their ballot.
So if you're on the phone with a loved one that's in line and they're about to pull the pin and walk away, tell them not to, because they will get to vote before the night is out. All right, either way it goes tonight, there'll be a lot of emotions from elation to defeat. We have live team coverage for you on all the action. Tram Mai and Colleen Sikora are covering the governor's race.
All right, let's get started with Tram, who is live in Scottsdale with the Republicans. Hey, Tram.
Hi, Caribe. Hi, Mark. Yeah, it is a packed house here at the Scottsdale Resort. Right now, taking the stage is David Schweikert. But as you can see, there are probably hundreds of people, not only in this room, but also outside. They are watching monitors outside as well. So much talk tonight of a red wave. In fact, Kimberly Yee, who's running for re-election for state treasurer, she even called it hoping for a red tsunami. But earlier, just within the half hour, speaking of Dr. Kelly Ward, I just had a chance to talk to her. She just took the stage. She was the first guest to take the stage when they started talking at about, I would say maybe half hour or so ago. And she talked about just trying to get the crowd hyped up. And I had a chance to talk with her, and here's what she had to say.
Well, we have to make sure that everything is above board before we just blindly accept what some bureaucrat tells us. You know, I've been a champion of auditing our elections. I even wrote a book about it called Justified. So we have got to be sure. We need the transparency. We need the sunlight. And when those officials try to hide things and try to just pat the people on the head and tell them just trust what we say, we're not going to accept it anymore. That is we the people that were woken up by 2020. And nobody's saying we won't accept those results. We just want to make sure that the results that are accepted are actually the true results.
Is in response to whether or not win or lose, if they will accept the results. That's going to do it for us here in Scottsdale. Back to you.
All right, Tram, thank you. Now let's head over to Team 12's Colleen Sikora. She is reporting on the Katie Hobbs campaign for governor. Colleen, what is happening there?
Hey guys, I'm actually going to toss it out to Katie Hobbs, is up on stage right now.
Officials are hard at work tabulating those votes, and they're going to be tabulating them for the next few days. I know that we're all eager to find out who won each of these incredibly important races, but we need to be patient and wait for every vote to be counted. Because every single vote matters, and every single vote counts equally. Whether you voted by mail, dropped off your ballot in a secure drop box yesterday, or voted in person today. We know my opponent and her allies have been sowing doubt and confusion throughout this campaign. And it's unacceptable that they were spreading this information today while people were exercising their freedom to vote. I have
administering this election conducted a free and fair election, and their results will be accurate. But they will take time. So prepare for a long evening and a few more days of counting. And for now, let's go enjoy the evening. Thank you.
The crowd today shouting for Katie. In her speech, she called saying that people need to be patient as votes continue to be counted over the coming days. She started out by saying with this early lead, which as we've mentioned, is likely to change as it could change over as more results start to come in. She says that they are feeling good about what we are seeing. She was only on stage for just a couple of minutes, but again, you heard those cheers for Katie. She thanked all of the volunteers and all the work that was done to get out the vote. Hobbs has been on the campaign trail all over Arizona for the last few days, encouraging people to get out the vote. In addition, she has said that, this race was expected to be tight. She has talked about how she even expects possibly a recount in the race because of how tight she's expecting this to be between herself and Lake, expecting that it could trigger a new law that the state legislature put into effect this year that would trigger an automatic recount by half if results come within 0.5%. But obviously still saying tonight that she's feeling very confident, feeling very good here at the Democratic Watch Party. Now, we did have a chance to catch up with Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego. She tells us she doesn't think it's going to be a sweep of one party or another running the state of Arizona for the next 4 years. Gallego in the city of Phoenix has had policy disagreements with the governor's office, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. But she said that, basically the city of Phoenix's success is Arizona's success. But obviously more to come later on this evening here at the Arizona Democratic Watch Party. But for now, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Team 12's Colleen Sikora at Democratic headquarters. We will continue our live coverage here online on 12news.com in just a moment, but for now, we'll pause our coverage.
And thanks for joining us, everyone. 12 News Decision 2022 live election coverage continues right now. I'm Kariba Devine.
I'm Mark Curtis. Let's get right to the latest vote totals that are coming in as the first results begin to come down, and you can see, and I want to caution you as you look at these results, this is the first vote dump, what they call it, the first batch of votes. And these are the early votes that have come in. Many Democrats in Arizona tend to vote by mail. So as you look at these results, you're going to see Democrats in the lead. That could change in the next few hours, overnight, and into tomorrow. But right now, it's Katie Hobbs, the Democrat, with a 10-point lead over her challenger, Kari Lake, 55 to 45%.
All right, moving on to a big race that, of course, is getting lots of national attention. Two contestants that have been neck and neck leading up to this point. Right now, the early numbers are in on the U.S. Senate race. Incumbent Mark Kelly on the Democratic side right now is leading. He has 56.2% of the votes that are coming in across Arizona. Blake Masters, his Republican opponent, someone who is endorsed by Trump, but largely a newcomer to politics here in Arizona, 41.4% of the vote is what he's bringing in. And then you see another person there on the ballot there, that is Mark Victor. He dropped out of the race, but his name is still on the ballot.
All right, the race for Secretary of State. It's Adrian Fontes, the Democrat, with a sizable lead over Mark Finchem. But again, this is the very early goings as just the first batch of votes come down. So this will likely change overnight, but it's Fontes with the lead over Mark Finchem, the Trump-endorsed candidate.
The race for Attorney General, Chris Mays, is leading 54.9%. Her Republican opponent, Abraham Hamadeh, is also a Trump-endorsed candidate. Right now, he's trailing, again, with these early numbers, 45.1%.
All right, we're joined by Team 12 political insider Bram Resnick. And Bram, obviously, it's very early to make any kind of a judgment on this. But is this the blue mirage you were expecting?
Actually, yeah. I'm kind of surprised because you've heard me say I'm not predicting anything, but we expected blue mirage in the sense that these numbers for Democrats are going to come down, Republicans are going to go up. But what stands out is the Adrian Fontes number. He is ahead of all his fellow Democrats. Hobbs, Mays, Hoffman all have the same vote range. Fontes is ahead of them, which tells you there's some split ticket going on there. Republican voters are choosing Fontes over Fincham in the Secretary of State's race. Very interesting. We've talked about ticket splitting. Arizonans are notorious for this, so we may end up seeing that as well with Mark Kelly at the top of the ticket, but Republicans below him when the dust settles.
All right, and how much of the vote is in right now, do you think?
All right, we got to go back to our NBC coverage. We'll join you again in a few minutes. Well, right now in the early goings, it's Adrian Fontes with a sizable lead over Mark Fincham for Arizona Secretary of State. We want to go back to Democratic headquarters in downtown Phoenix.
What do you say? Now, we've seen a few of the numbers coming out, and we feel pretty good about where we're at right now. We feel pretty good. That having been said, we will, with level heads and respect, we will respect the process. We will make sure every vote gets counted across this great state of Arizona. In the meantime, let us celebrate democracy. Let us celebrate the idea that we have moved in our civilization away from the divine right of kings and into the rule of law, where every single one of us matters. And let's also remember that regardless of the results, we have good people working right now all across Arizona to make sure that we preserve and protect democracy. So have a great time. We will be out later on tonight. Thank you, everyone, supporters, volunteers, staff, everybody here, all across the great state and all across the world. America's light will continue to shine, and we will preserve and protect the Republic. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Arizona Democratic candidate for Secretary of State Adrian Fontes very jazzed up with the early lead over Mark Fincham. Now to Tucson, where our Chase Golightly is following Democratic incumbent Mark Kelly.
All right, Chase, how are things looking out there with the Kelly campaign?
Well, everyone here at the Rialto Theater in Tucson are excited. You can see behind me a lot of people packing the room here, waiting for Senator Mark Kelly to take the stage to talk about those initial election results that are currently coming out that have Senator Kelly in the lead, of course, and we've been talking about it all night, and we will continue to talk about it. We did expect this to happen. Senator Kelly did expect this to happen. It even looks like that they're playing some footage, probably a little promotional video before Senator Kelly comes out. We're expecting that to happen here within the next 30 minutes to talk about the election, talking about all the efforts his campaign has done within the last year, just door knocking, making those phone calls, hoping to see how that will all shake out for this election. He did say that he expected it to be a close race. We're still anticipating for that to happen. We spoke to him earlier in the day before polls were closed. This is what he had to say.
I always thought that this would be a very competitive and close race, and it is. That's why it's important for people to vote. So if you don't have a plan, come up with a plan, get to the polling place. It's just good for our democracy when more people vote, and our democracy's been challenged right now.
Now, during that same interview, Senator Mark Kelly still said he expects them to win tonight. Of course, we'll have to wait as those ballots continue to be counted in. And, of course, stick with 12 News on air and online. We'll be sure to tell you what the senator will be saying on the stage here tonight. But for now, we're live in Tucson. Chase Golightly, 12 News.
All right, Chase, thanks so much. Now we are going to send it over to Michael Doudna. He is covering the Blake Masters campaign, Mark Kelly's Republican opponent, who right now is trailing behind in the early numbers that are coming in. Let's check in with Michael to see how folks there are reacting. Hi, Michael.
Who are in charge of this election?
Yeah, guys, actually not a lot of reaction here yet because, well, it's a pretty packed crowd. They've had a lot of energetic and fiery speakers talking about a potential red wave. The one thing they really haven't shown, though, are any of those results. So not a lot of people really have gone out and actually seen the fact that Blake Masters and others are trailing by more than 100,000 votes at this point in time. But these results really aren't a surprise. Talking to the Masters campaign over the last several days, they really always expected to be behind with this initial drop and figured they could potentially make it up on those election day voters and also those their ballots either day or yesterday. But of course, with that sizable gap, that's unclear right now whether or not he'll be able to actually make that up over time. But we do expect throughout the night and over the next several days for this lead that Kelly has it smaller and smaller and smaller. And Masters hopes that will be enough eventually, well, to end up on top.
So we're just hoping people get their votes in, vote their conscience. I think their conscience is going to break for Republicans here. I mean, we just got to get the votes in. We got to get I think in a first world country, you should know who wins the election on election night. It may take a little bit longer than that, but
Election crimes units.
And Masters says that he likely won't know the results later on until at least around midnight tonight to really get an idea of where this election is standing and where exactly it will go. We expect it to be a long night here, a lot of votes still to count, but right now he has a lot of ground to make up with those day of votes. But for now, we'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Michael Doudna, thank you. He's covering the Blake Masters campaign. Now let's focus and go back to that closely watched Secretary of State race with Democrat Adrian Fontes, who has the early lead over his Republican challenger, Mark Finchem.
We are continuing our live team coverage on election night. Our Jade Cunningham is standing by with the very latest on Adrian Fontes.
But first, let's go to Team 12's Jonathan McCall, who's in Scottsdale following the Finchem campaign. Jonathan?
We are here for it.
Yeah, Mark Caribe, we're still waiting to get more information from Mark Finchem. We do know that he is here in Scottsdale. I got a chance to catch up with him a little earlier today to talk about some of the issues that have been popping up across Maricopa County. We do know that he is here at this watch party tonight, but he's been tweeting up a storm all day long, talking about those issues that have been popping up across Maricopa County. So far, we have not been able to get his reaction to these early poll numbers that have just come out. One of those things that the representative from Pima County mentioned earlier today, he says that folks have been reaching out to him all day long about those issues that have been popping up at those tabulation centers who have been expressing their concerns. Now that we've learned that a judge did not extend the polling hours, and right now, as we know that with these early numbers, Mark Finchem is losing this early vote. I got a chance to catch up with him earlier today to ask him if he would pursue any type of legal action at this point. Knowing everything that has happened so far, here's what he had to say.
No, I don't think we know enough at this point. I have some serious questions about the issue of reliability.
And Mark Finchem has been one of the most vocal critics of the results of the 2020 election and says that he has made elections a priority for his campaign, has made them the center of his campaign, and has said that if he is elected, he would like to see a series of reforms brought to Arizona to try to, what he says, secure elections here in Arizona. Again, Mr. Finchem is out here talking to folks in the crowd. We have not had a chance to talk with him just yet about this latest developments, but we'll try to get him and bring his comments to you throughout the night right here on 12 News. Covering the Finchem campaign in Scottsdale tonight, I'm Jonathan McCall, 12 News.
All right, Jonathan, thanks for that.
Well, now to the Democratic Watch Party, where our Jade Cunningham is standing by. She's following Adrian Fontes in the race for Secretary of State.
Jade?
Hey, good evening. Yeah, Adrian Fontes actually just took the stage just a bit ago. He said that he is feeling pretty good. He thanked voters for protecting democracy and that it doesn't matter their party affiliation. Every vote matters. He, of course, feeling very confident. He knows that this will be a close race, and he did tell us earlier that he's just looking forward to seeing what will happen with this election. He, of course, wants voters to know that they, too, should feel confident about their results and that their vote matters. Earlier today, of course, there was that issue with the tabulation machines in Maricopa County. He says that there are technical systems and they can glitch sometimes, but the results that come from them are accurate and will be accurate, and people should feel assured of that. That's one of the major issues that he wants to address if elected, is rebuilding trust with voters, especially when it comes to the election process. With the Republican Party filing that lawsuit because of the tabulation glitch, Fontes telling me he is not surprised by the lawsuit and says that the judge made the right decision.
No, I think the court did the right thing. Voters have had an opportunities to not only vote early, but the county had contingencies all day long. And while these things do happen, we know no election is perfect. I certainly do know that. I think folks have had a free and fair opportunity to vote, and I think this was just a media stunt by the Republicans.
He also told us a bit earlier that the idea of hand counting ballots is not the solution to this, which of course is something that his opponent was suggesting earlier in the day. Fontes, though, saying that it wasn't a counting issue, it was a technical issue. And of course, he is asking for the patience of people as these votes are tallied. For now, reporting live, Jay Cunningham, back to you guys.
All right, Jay, thank you. Well, there is a lot riding on tonight's election for both political parties.
Bram is sitting down with a couple of political insiders to break it down for us. And Bram, now that this has happened and the judge has ruled against the Republicans, is this likely to become a talking point for the next 3 or 4 days?
It's possible there is more legal action in store. We just don't know. That's the way our politics are played these days. Lots of lawsuits. We're back with Julie Erfle, Democratic consultant, worked on several campaigns. Republican Christine Jones, former candidate for governor. Here in Arizona, we get to make laws at the ballot box, and a lot of really interesting laws are in the process of being made or not made tonight. Julie, give us a breakdown.
So dark money, Terry Goddard's initiative that he's been trying to get passed and on the ballot for a number of election cycles, it looks like that is going to pass. That is winning by quite a bit. When it comes to the direct democracy initiatives about that the legislature referred about making it harder to get an initiative on the ballot, surprising information here. It looks like a couple of them are not going to pass, which is good news for those in favor of initiatives. But one is looking like it may pass, which is kind of surprising. Dreamers also, that's looking like good news, Prop 308.
So Prop 308 would grant in-state tuition to undocumented immigrants who graduate from high school.
Right.
And just Terry Goddard's initiative, the Dark Money Initiative, would require donors or organizations that pay for ads on TV to reveal who their donors are.
Right, the original source.
The original source. And they had a bunch of initiatives that were asking voters to make it harder for them to make laws at the ballot box.
Right.
Christine, we're going to go to you and the congressional races and what they're telling us about a blue mirage or red wave.
Yeah, I do think there are a couple of blue mirages, but can I just touch on what Julie said for a second? Regardless of where you stand on dark money, you have to hand it to Terry Goddard. He has worked on that for a long time, so hats off to him for
This is his fourth try.
for being persistent. I mean, you know, he's really been a soldier for that initiative. Here's a couple of things that surprise me. Now, whether it's a mirage or not, we'll still find out yet later tonight, Bram, but Jevin Hodge leading David Schweikert 56-43 in the early ballot drop. This could be profound in terms of a shift, not only in the balance of our congressional delegation, but a 6-term United States congressman and a serious leader on the budget in Congress in David Schweikert.
Who has been troubled by ethics issues. Punished for it.
Beyond, okay, admittedly. And 434 members of Congress voted against him for that ethics violation. He was the one vote that didn't vote for against him. So that could be an interesting shift. We had talked about Greg Stanton earlier. He seems to be holding out against Kelly Cooper. But we also have Eli Crane, who looks like he's going to pick up a seat in southern Arizona against Tom O'Halloran. So we may have, shifting deck chairs, but we may end up with the same balance of power there in our congressional delegation. So definitely keep your eye on those.
And Greg Stanton has been interesting to me because as we look around the country at the congressional races, some Democrats holding on in some surprising ways. Stanton seems to me to be the litmus test here in Arizona. If Biden's low approval ratings and if concerns about inflation and the border were going to take out a Democrat, it likely would be him. And yet right now, he's looking pretty good with, I think, about 60+% of the vote.
Yeah, he's at 63-37, and I think that's probably enough to hold on regardless of what the day of voting turns out to be.
Races were not highlighting the state Senate, which Democrats hope to at least gain a tie. What does that look like?
State Senate is actually looking really good for Democrats. I'm looking in particular at LD2, Jeannie Castine.
Legislative District 2.
Correct. Legislative District 4 with Christine Marsh in the lead. And
hold on to Legislative District 4. That's a big one. It's in kind of goes Central Phoenix up to North Phoenix.
Right.
It's Christine Marsh, veteran Democrat, versus Nancy Barto, longtime Republican, thrown into the same district, both incumbent senators in the same district. And Marsh is leading by what?
She's at 58% right now.
58%.
Which is quite significant. So I think Marsh is going to hold on to that one. I think she's going to pull that one out.
I heard there are a lot of voters in LD4 today.
They're
a lot of Republican voters, I should say.
I believe that there were. I don't think that she's going to win by a huge margin, but it's looking good right now. I mean, that is looking good. LD2, like I said, with Jeannie Castine over Steve Kaiser, that is looking good. And Legislative District 9 as well, Eva Birch over Robert Scantlebury.
My Mesa area Scantlebury, a Trumper. Got to remind folks, though, as far as we know, many of the ballots, the early ballots that have been counted, the ones being counted now, are majority Democrat.
Right, correct.
Right? So
correct.
Need to know that.
This is going to tighten a lot. It's going to tighten a lot, but I think these early results at least give Dems a little bit of a sigh of relief. They're not packing things up.
You've been sighing.
Yes. Can we make one quick
Real
point?
quick.
To Mark's earlier point about the day of ballots and will there be further discussion and is this a talking point? The answer, Mark, is yes, this will be a talking point. The ballots that went into door number 3 or tray 3 will end up probably deciding some of these races. That will be hugely controversial, so keep your eye on those.
Possible lawsuit in the works there.
For sure,
All right,
yeah.
Julie Erfle, Christine Jones, thanks so much. Let's send it back to you guys.
Well, once upon a time, guys, it was hanging chads, and now door number 3 is trending on social media. Another big showdown tonight for the race for Attorney General with Democrat Chris Mays and Republican Abe Hamadeh.
Team 12's Joe Dana is covering that race for us tonight. We're going to head out to Joe. And Joe, how are things looking there?
I tell you what, there's a lot of excitement as they wait for more counts of votes, but something that probably should be restated, especially from the Democratic point of view here in this race. This is not a typical election. You have an entire slate of GOP candidates who have been endorsed by and declared loyalty to a former president who was the first president in American history not to allow a peaceful transfer of power and who tried to overturn an election and has continued to repeat a false conspiracy that has really deteriorated trust around the country in our elections. This is something Democrats feel strongly about. They truly believe this is, in many ways, a referendum on democracy. Chris Mays, one of the most outspoken. I talked to her just a little bit ago. Take a listen to what she had to say about her chances. Are you getting feedback from canvassers and pollsters about whether or not you're getting the votes you may need to win this?
You know, we are. I mean, the word that we're getting back from canvassers, and I've done several canvasses myself, and I've been launching canvasses, is that Arizonans, especially independents and moderate Republicans, are coming over to vote for Democrats. They're voting against this extreme slate of Republicans that have been nominated. You know, Arizona is going to come through for the country tonight. I really believe that. And American democracy runs through the state of Arizona in 2022. And the people of this state are going to come through for our democracy. And we're hearing that at the doors. We're hearing that people want sanity over chaos in the state of Arizona. So we're feeling cautiously optimistic.
And I also talked to Congressman Ruben Gallego just a little bit ago. He made somewhat of a bold prediction, saying he believes that Katie Hobbs will win. In his words, he believes that Kari Lake's fatal mistake was attacking the McCain family. And he believes that will make a difference with moderate conservative voters. But lots of votes to be counted, of course. We'll have more here from the Democratic headquarters in a little bit.
All right, Joe, thank you. Now we want to go over to the congressional races on the ballot.
Several races up for grabs tonight, could be very close. And let's go back to Team 12's Bram Resnick. And Bram, tell us what we need to know.
Preview with our panel over there. These are races that are really going to tell us how voters feel about President Biden, high gas prices, high food prices, rent. You know, these prices are the litmus test. So let's take a look. And Greg Stanton appears to be running away with CD4, the two-term congressman, up 63% to 37% over Kelly Cooper, a newcomer restaurant owner. That looks pretty safe for Greg Stanton, and maybe one more sign there's not a red wave tonight. Don't want to speak too soon, but it's sure looking that way over here. Let's go to congressional district number 1. David Schweikert, 5-term congressman, down 43% to 57% for newcomer Jevin Hodge. This is a race to watch. As we said, Schweikert's had some ethics problems over the years. 5-term congressman, it might be that voters in that district may have had it. This district is less Republican than the last district he ran in. So that's something to keep in mind as well. All these districts have been redrawn, the ones we're talking about. Congressional District 2, Tom O'Halloran is the incumbent. Eli Crane, a SEAL, he is up 51% to 49% over Tom O'Halloran. That's a district. Tom O'Halloran was redrawn into a district that now leans Republican. So he's got an uphill fight to hold on to his seat. Let's move on now to our next district, District 6. Very interesting here. Again, we believe we're largely seeing Democratic votes. Former state lawmaker Kirsten Engel, 57%. Juan Ciscomani, former aide to Governor Doug Ducey, 43%. He is a Latino candidate who Republican operatives, officials have a lot of hopes for. This is a race to watch in southern Arizona, the Tucson area. And I believe we have District 5, the last one we're going to look at. Andy Biggs, the incumbent, a bit of a shock. CD5, Andy Biggs, a solid red district. Javier Ramos running for the 3rd time, no advertising. He told me he spent $8,000 on his race. And he is running neck and neck with Andy Biggs in the early going. This is a bit of a surprise. Clint Smith, the independent, who hoped to capitalize on disenchantment with Biggs in that district among Republicans. He's a Republican who's running as an independent. It's not going to happen for Clint Smith. We'll see if this holds. Unlikely, but boy, that's another surprise as well tonight. Let's send it back to you guys.
Okay, Bram, thanks. Well, we know we're throwing a lot of information at you, but all of this is important. We have seen record turnout today across the country and here in Arizona.
That's right. We're going to continue to track all the numbers and the updates as the night goes on. Back here in the studio, our Team 12's William Pitts is breaking this election down by the numbers. Let's check in now with Will. Hey, Will.
Hey, guys. Yeah, I want to show you this. These are some of the issues that we know voters have been worried about or concerned about during the election. This is a graph of inflation in Arizona. Of course, you can see the big one, that's gas prices, goes sky high once you get to 2022. And of course, everything down here, that's housing and food, starts low, gets a little higher as we go along to 2022. No surprise there, everything is getting more expensive. Crime is another one that popped up in all the ads that you've been watching over the last couple of months. Here's where we stand on crime, according to the FBI numbers. The blue line there, that's the national crime level. Yellow, that's Arizona. So crime obviously a little higher in Arizona, not that much higher in 2022 than it was in 2017. That was when it really spiked over the national average. The next one you heard about is the border crossings. Border crossings are up quite a bit from 2019, which is the last number that the Border Patrol has. 2019, little dip down in 2020, probably because of COVID-19, and then spikes back up 21 and 22. A little bit of that could be the Remain in Mexico policy also going away. The next thing is drug seizures. This is all the drugs that the Border Patrol has seized. The yellow line here, that's the southwest border. The blue is nationally, so that's Canada, that's the coasts, that's everywhere. But down here, you hear a lot about fentanyl coming over the border. Fentanyl is this purple line down here. Purple line does go up quite a bit once you get to 2022, but it's not the most prevalent thing coming across the border. Right now, that's actually methamphetamine. And the bottom one, marijuana, that's coming in third down at the bottom here. So that's a quick look at some of those issues that you've been hearing a lot about, what those numbers actually tell us about that, guys.
All right, Will, thank you so much. And our political insiders brought this up earlier. There are a lot of propositions on the ballot that will affect citizens of Arizona. So it's time to talk these props.
All right, and remember, as you look at these numbers that come in, a yes vote means you are voting for change. A no vote is the status quo. And the first one up is Prop 131 that would install and create a lieutenant governor for Arizona. We haven't had one. Right now, if the governor leaves office, the Secretary of State takes over. But should this pass, as of 2026, the lieutenant governor would take over, and the lieutenant governor is chosen by the governor.
All right, looking at Prop 209, this one here, if it gets a yes vote, this would help protect those who are dealing with medical debt here. It would protect them from predatory debt collectors. Right now, this is a 75.3% on the yes votes for that. That is Prop 209 for medical debt, the no's at 24%.
Campaign finance. This is a big one. This is one of those props that would shine a spotlight on what's known as dark money in politics. We have dark money, unidentified money that is influenced in almost every election that we have, both locally, statewide, and nationally. The yes vote would create a situation where you would know where this dark money is coming from.
All right, let's get a look at Prop 308, in-state tuition for Dreamers. Dreamers, obviously a big topic here in Arizona. Those are kids that were brought to the states as children from other countries. Now, this would give them the opportunity to receive in-state tuition as long as they have gone to high school here in Arizona. A yes vote right now seems to be leading 55.73%, no votes at 44.27%.
And Prop 309, voter ID, and this would toughen ID requirements for voting in person or by mail. And boy, there's not a lot of interest at this point in changing the status quo. So as of right now, the no votes, which means that it would stay the same as it's been, that's leading it by a pretty wide margin.
All right, so we'll get a look at some more propositions a little bit later on in our show, but we're going to take a few minutes to look at some of the latest numbers that are coming in right now.
Don't go anywhere. We'll continue our live team coverage online and on TV beginning in just 3 minutes on at 9 o'clock.
It's election night in Arizona. The campaigning is over. Now your voices will be heard. The tightly contested battle for governor between Katie Hobbs.
We are exactly where we thought we would be in terms of the closeness of this race.
And Kari Lake.
And we are going to take back Arizona.
The race for Senate that could determine control of Congress. Incumbent Mark Kelly.
We always knew that this was going to be very competitive.
The challenger, Blake Masters.
We've got the momentum. I'm the underdog, but we're going to win.
And some of the state's most impactful races. Secretary of State, who will control Arizona's election process, and Attorney General, the showdown for the state's top prosecutor, plus the local races and ballot initiatives that impact your community. Tonight, the entire 12 News team live, ready to bring you results and reactions. Decision 2022, 12 News coverage of the midterm elections starts now.
Tonight is the night for Decision 2022, and all eyes are on Arizona. And tonight we are tracking all of the important races from all across the state. Welcome to 12 News. I am Kariba Devine.
I'm Mark Curtis. Thanks for joining us. We'll have complete live team coverage for you for at least the next few hours. Let's get right to the latest vote totals in the major races in Arizona. And as we take a look at them, the one that everyone is talking about, of course, is the race for Arizona governor. And right now, after the first batch of ballots were dumped, votes were dumped, it's Katie Hobbs with a sizable lead over Kari Lake. What does that mean? Not much at this point, because there are many, many votes yet to be counted, especially the votes that from people that were waiting in line today, that waited in line for hours and withstood some technical glitches. Those votes may take several days to be counted.
Yeah, lots of people waiting in line today to make their voices heard in this very pivotal election. Right now, we're looking at the numbers for U.S. Senate. We have Mark Kelly. He is the Democratic incumbent right now. He is leading in this race right now by quite a bit, 58.1%. His Republican opponent, Blake Masters, he is the Trump-endorsed candidate, a venture capitalist and author, right now bringing in 39.6%. Mark Victor, who dropped out of the race, but his name is still on the ballot, he managing to get about 2.3% of the votes tonight.
Secretary of State, the chief elections officer for the state of Arizona. Not that we've ever had any problems here, but the way you vote could be changed depending on who wins this. And it's Adrian Fontes, the Democrat, with a sizable lead, almost 20 points over Mark Finchem, the Trump-endorsed candidate, the candidate who has repeatedly said he does not believe the results of the 2020 election.
All right, let's look at the race now for Attorney General. The Democrat, Kris Mayes, she is leading right now with the votes that have been counted so far, 56.8%. Abraham Hamadeh, a former prosecutor, 43.2%.
And in the race for Arizona Superintendent of Public Instruction, it's Kathy Hoffman, the incumbent, with a lead over Tom Horn, who once held this office once upon a time, 56 to about 44%.
All right, here's the race for Arizona State Treasurer. The two candidates here on the Democratic side, Martin Quesada, he is bringing in 50% of the vote. Right now, it looks like those two are even there, which is a little bit odd. So we'll have to, get back to this race here in just a minute and see if those numbers are accurate. But nevertheless, Kimberly Yee, she's the incumbent treasurer right now, and that graphic shows she has 50% of the vote as well.
For Corporation Commissioner, we'll put two in the office. It's the two Democrats leading it at this point.
All right, let's head now to the race for Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell. She is in the acting position right now. She was appointed into that position after the resignation of the late Alistair Adele, but now she is running for this race herself, 46.6% of the vote. She is trailing behind the Democrat Julie Gunnigal, who's bringing in 53.4% for the office of Maricopa County Attorney.
All right, so what do these numbers really mean to us here at 9 o'clock at night? Probably don't bet on any of this at this point. Joining us now is our chief political insider, Bram Resnick.
Not yet, but you are seeing some trends forming. For example, Blake Masters was campaigning closely with Kari Lake in the final days of the campaign. He's trailing her in vote share. Very interesting. Also interesting, the Republicans in the final days of the campaign, led by Kari Lake, were going after the base of the base, bringing in people like Steve Bannon, who is far to the right, someone who had a role in January 6th insurrection, bringing him in to campaign for her. They were going after the base of the base. We don't know if that worked. We're going to find out over the next several hours and next couple days. Also on the Democratic side, Mark Kelly and Adrian Fontes, I made this point earlier, talk about ticket splitting. A lot of Republicans, independents went over to the Kelly and Fontes side, then switched back to the Republican side in some of the other races. Something to watch really closely. I want to pause and give a heads up to my producers and say I want to go to Legislative District 4, the Senate race. If you can put that up on the screen. We talked about it earlier. This is a big litmus test race. I think we have the House race up now. I'd like to see the Senate race if we can put that up. It's Christine Marsh, incumbent Democratic senator, against Nancy Barto, incumbent Republican, a true social conservative. Christine Marsh leading by a significant margin there. LD4 was redrawn. It's a central North Phoenix district, goes up into Scottsdale, was redrawn. Both of them put into that district. Christine Marsh has won a tough race, lost a tough race, both very close. This may turn out to be that's a significant lead. I will add this caveat, a contact. Someone who knows that district well said Republican votes outnumbered Democrats 5-1 there today, right? The late talk about Republicans showing up.
Yeah.
So that's the mountain or the avalanche that Christine Marsh is looking at right now, and we'll see if she can survive it.
We haven't talked a lot about women's reproductive rights, but when you talk about that, and especially in Arizona, Nancy Barto's name is going to come up as a hardline anti-abortion candidate. Do you think that has any influence at all on what we're seeing now?
It had to. You have a lot of voters in that district who fit the profile of women who are concerned with reproductive rights. You could track a path along the Loop 101, the north side and the east side, suburban pockets that have women voters who are concerned about reproductive rights, whether Democrat, Republican, or independent. So I have to believe that is playing a role in that race, especially given the amount of emphasis Democratic candidates are putting on it.
Yeah, Brad, there's always a lot of buzz around a presidential election, right? This midterm election seems like it is just huge in terms of campaign money, the attention that it's getting. How does this compare to other midterm elections? You've been covering these for decades now?
400 decades. Come on, Caribe. Decades.
See, no, I didn't say that. She said it.
A couple of years.
$400 million in spending on this midterm election in Arizona? That's unheard of. We can't even keep track of the money anymore. Used to be, you had a pencil, pencils,
yes,
paper, you
yes.
could write it down and track it all. Can't do that anymore. It's just grown out of control. It does appear this midterm will match the turnout levels of the 2018 midterm election. However, I'll add this. Typically, Republicans have about a +6, +8 point turnout advantage over Democrats. That's a hurdle every Democratic candidate has to get over by peeling off Republicans, as it appears Adrian Fontes and Mark Kelly did, and independents, again, as it appears they did. You need to do that to win here in Arizona if you're a Democrat.
All right, Bram. Standing by for us for the next couple of hours, but we're going to get on to the rest of our election 2022 coverage.
Could be the next couple of weeks the way things have gone, especially with the snafus, the technical snafus at the ballots. There could be lawsuits flying. Well, the biggest race statewide is the race for Arizona governor, of course. Colleen Sikora is covering Katie Hobbs' campaign. She's live at the Democratic Watch Party in downtown Phoenix.
Okay, but we're going to kick things off first with Team 12's Tram Mai. She is covering the Kari Lake campaign at the Republican Watch Party in Scottsdale. Tram.
Yeah, Caribe and Mark, this watch party has been going on since about 6 o'clock. We're here at the Scottsdale Resort at McCormick Ranch. Right now, they have a number of speakers, but among the most notable ones, Dr. Kelly Ward, who's the chairwoman of the Arizona Republican Party, as well as Kimberly Yee, who is running for re-election for state treasurer. But no sign of Kari Lake, no sign of Mark Fincham, and no sign of Blake Masters. Those are the people that this crowd wants to see. You can see they are energized. This is a packed house. where we're at, there is so much media. We're talking probably 5 times as much media as it was on primary night. But earlier, I did have a chance to talk to Dr. Kelly Ward and ask her reaction to the fact that the judge denied an emergency motion to actually extend the polls. This was brought on by Kari Lake's campaign as well as Masters' campaign and the RNC. Here's what she had to say if they were going to take any more legal action. Take a listen.
Well, I never say never because we don't know what's going to happen. So we're keeping our eyes on the prize. We have 35 attorneys here on site, actually in this hotel. We have 40 other attorneys roving the entire state. We are ready if legal action needs to be taken to assure election integrity and restore voter confidence in this process.
All right, once again, we are still waiting for the major 3 candidates, Kari Lake, Blake Masters, and Mark Finchem, to take the stage. No sign of when that will really happen. If you'll remember on primary night, Kari Lake didn't even take the stage until well into the evening. We're talking close to 10:30. So another reason could be that they are waiting for a bigger lead. Historically, as you know, Republicans show up to vote on election day. Democrats, we're seeing what could be a blue mirage, where you see a lot of Democrats in the lead right now, but later on, again, we may not know who our governor will be by the end of tonight. It could be a couple of days when all the votes are counted, especially after issues today with the tabulation issues. So no word, no telling, but as soon as Kari Lake hits the stage, or Finchem or Masters, we will definitely bring that to you. We're live in Scottsdale. Tram Mai, back to you.
Tram, that's a lot of lawyers wandering around in there.
Yeah, they're ready. They are lawyered up.
Thanks. Arizona governor, of course, is the biggest office up for grabs tonight, and it has been an extremely tight race.
All right, we're going to check in now with Team 12's Colleen Sikora reporting on the Katie Hobbs campaign for governor. Colleen.
Yeah, good evening, guys. Less than an hour ago, Secretary of State Katie Hobbs came onto stage to cheers of her name, saying that with this first batch of early election results, it's leaving her feeling good with her early lead this evening. But as you guys mentioned, Hobbs also is expecting this race between her and Kari Lake to be tight, even telling us yesterday that she expects that it will be so tight it could trigger an automatic recount. Now this evening, she encouraged her supporters to be patient as votes continue to be counted this evening and into tonight and in the next few days. The cheers you're hearing here at the Arizona Democratic Watch Party is folks cheering for Democrat winners across the country. But Hobbs said today, too, that this could be the most important election in Arizona, saying free and fair elections are what's on the ballot.
We know my opponent and her allies have been sowing doubt and confusion throughout this campaign. And it's unacceptable that they were spreading misinformation today while people were exercising their freedom to vote. I have every confidence that the counties administering this election conducted a free and fair election, and their results will be accurate. But they will take time. So prepare for a long evening and a few more days of counting.
Now here, back out live at the Arizona Democratic Watch Party, several of the other statewide candidates have come onto stage echoing Hobbs' comments, saying that supporters and voters across the state should be patient, trust the process as votes continue to be counted. We still have a long night. We'll continue keeping you posted here on air and online, as well as in the 12 News app. But for now, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Colleen, thank you for that. All right, we're going to head now to downtown Phoenix.
That's where Joe Dana is live with the candidates on the Democratic ticket. Joe, what's the latest?
3 things to watch for here in the camp of Democrats. 1, 6 public school teachers are running for legislative positions. It'll be interesting to see how many of them can get into office during this critical time of the state as it enters the new age of school vouchers. Number 2, in southern Arizona, there is a congressional seat open right now. You have Democrat Kristen Engel going up against Juan Ciscomani, backed by Governor Ducey. That'll be a tough race for Democrats to keep. And third, there are real concerns that the state legislature next year will continue this trend of passing more laws that relate to voting and potentially restricting voting and taking away some of the power from the average citizen. I spoke with U.S. Congressman Ruben Gallego, who is expected to win his race, about whether he thinks the Democratic Party has efficiently sent the message over the last couple of months about what is on the line. Do you feel the Democratic Party in recent months sent the right message to help voters understand what's at stake?
I certainly feel they did. Talking to voters at the polling place over the last couple of days, seeing it in polling also, there's a lot of voters that voted Democratic this year because they felt that democracy was at stake. And also the election denialism that you saw up and down the Republican ticket, I think did not help Republicans. I think there was a lot of non-MAGA Republicans that crossed over to vote, might be 10% or somewhere between 5-10%, but it was that election denialism that I think lost them the race. Had they avoided that, I think that would have been significant. Secondly, I think that it was fatally, it was a big fatal mistake for Kari Lake to attack the McCain family.
It's really hard to overstate how Democrats feel here. They believe they are going up against a movement led by a leader who has said he doesn't believe in the system of checks and balances in our democracy. Former President Trump, who just last week said he believes America is fundamentally evil. It's almost hard to exaggerate the movement that Democrats feel they are up against and the importance that they feel this race has for the state and for the country. For now, I'll send it back to you.
And Joe, I wanted to ask you before we let you go, Representative Gallego touched on a very important point, and that is we can gauge the way the far right will vote. The far right will definitely go down ballot for Republicans. Same for the far left. But it's the independent and the moderate voters that are always sort of the crapshoot in any election. And maybe in the early goings tonight, that's what we're seeing is the moderate Republicans who have decided to reject the notion that what happened in 2020 was a lie.
And you saw people like Mesa Mayor John Giles and Rusty Bowers, prominent Republicans who came out along with a handful of others to try to send that message. They said this is about country over party. This election is different than any other. We disagree with Democrats on many things. But at the end of the day, it's about holding the line on the norms of democracy. How effective will their message be? We will see.
It's about the soul of the republic, many people believe. All right, Joe, thank you. We'll check back with you later.
And keep it right here. Don't go anywhere. Our Decision 2022 live coverage continues here on 12 News.
Welcome back as we continue our coverage of Decision 2022. Let's get back to the races if you're just tuning in tonight, just to get you caught up on what we're seeing so far.
All right, let's get to some of those numbers. And of course, the big race that's being watched here in Arizona and across the country is the race for Arizona governor. We have two women here running for this office. We have Katie Hobbs, the Democrat on this side. She is for the current Secretary of State here in Arizona. She is running for this office, 56.9% of the vote currently. Kari Lake, the Republican and Trump-endorsed candidate, is currently bringing in 43.1% of the votes that have already been tabulated.
In the race for U.S. Senate, it's the incumbent Mark Kelly, the Democrat, leading Blake Masters, the Trump-endorsed candidate. And on the far right, you see Mark Victor, who bowed out of the race about a week and a half ago, a week and a few days ago. But he still got 2.3% of the vote. And you wonder how that, if at all, affects either Masters or Mark Kelly, although Mark Victor did endorse Blake Masters.
Here's a look at the race for Secretary of State. We have far-right candidate Mark Finchem. He is trailing behind his Democratic opponent, who is Adrian Fontes, a former Maricopa County recorder. Right now, he's bringing in 59.3% of the vote. Mark Finchem is trailing behind him 40.7%.
Arizona Attorney General, the chief lawmaker for Arizona, the chief prosecutor, Chris Mays, leading Abraham Hamadeh, 56 to 43%.
Moving on now to the race for Maricopa County Attorney, the Democrat Julie Gunnigal is currently leading 53.4%. Her opponent is acting in this position currently due to the resignation of the late Alistair Adele. That is Rachel Mitchell. She currently has 46.6% of the vote for the office of Maricopa County Attorney.
All right, let's get to some props, because these are the ways that we as the voters of Arizona can change the outcome, the political landscape of our state. A yes vote means you want change. A no vote means you want the status quo, the way things are, to stay the same. And right now, Prop 131 would install a lieutenant governor, the number 2 to the acting governor, the person that would step in should the governor step out for any reason at all. Arizona currently doesn't have a lieutenant governor. Secretary of State would become the governor in that situation. But if this holds true, as of 2026, we would have a lieutenant governor, which is chosen by the acting governor.
All right, moving on to Prop 209. And this is a big one, especially if you are someone who is carrying a large amount of medical debt, possibly due to some sort of emergency. A yes vote on this would protect individuals or families' assets from predatory debt collectors. So it might limit the interest rate on debt to about 3%. Yes votes would allow this to happen. And right now, it is pretty overwhelming in terms of the numbers coming in for the yes vote. 75.29%. The no's on this at 24.71 for these early numbers.
A lot of people, God forbid, they have a devastating injury or illness in their family. They are angry about this issue. Campaign finance, another issue that people are angry about. This is the so-called dark money. What it would do is it would put a spotlight on where this dark money in campaigns is coming from, so that you would know and you could make an informed vote. And that also is leading at 56 to 43%.
All right, let's take a look at Prop 308. This is in-state tuition for Dreamers. Back in 2006, a statewide vote barred undocumented immigrants from receiving any state benefits. Well, this now would allow high school students who went to at least 2 years of high school here in Arizona to receive in-state tuition. These are students who were brought here to the United States from another country by their parents, and they would like to receive those benefits of paying a little bit less for college, to go to college here in Arizona. So a yes vote on this would allow that to happen. 55.63%. That is leading currently right now for in-state tuition for Dreamers.
Voter ID, Prop 309, and this would toughen ID requirements for voting in person or by mail. And not a lot of you have an interest in seeing this change. So right now the no's, which would mean no change, the status quo stays in place. If this holds true, then things would stay the same when it comes to the way you vote with your ID on Election Day.
All right, well, there is a lot riding on tonight's election for both political parties.
Bram is sitting down with a couple of political insiders to break it down for us. And Bram, we were talking about what this midterm election means to people across the country. For Democrats, they're calling it a vote for the soul and preserving democracy. What about the Republicans? Is this about a retribution for what happened in 2020? How are they characterizing this?
You know what? I'm going to ask one of our insiders, Christine Jones, from a Republican candidate for governor. Well, how are Republicans portraying this election in your mind?
Well, I think the way Democrats are portraying the way Republicans are portraying it is maybe the way Mark described it. But for Republicans, really, this is about a referendum on Joe Biden and Mark Kelly being Velcroed to Joe Biden and voting with him 98% of the time. So no, it really isn't about the referendum about did we have election integrity and are we going to have safe and secure elections in the future. It's really about do you support Biden's policies or not? And if you don't keep voting for him.
But speak about the election piece, because there's a reason the national media is here and the world media is here in a way I've never seen before, and that is their concern about the fate of democracy when you have a statewide Republican ticket that's filled with candidates who rejected the results of the election in 2020 and keep expressing concerns to the point of saying, you know, I got problems with this election and won't even accept the results. How big a role do you think that played in voters' minds in this election?
Well, I'm hoping it played a huge role. I mean, certainly in the earlies, I think the voters who voted early, it played a large role, and you see that play out with Dems getting a pretty significant share right up front. It's hard for me to understand how democracy wouldn't play a role in a lot of voters' minds. I know that inflation obviously is important, and we need to talk about inflation, but we are talking about a situation here where we have a whole slate of candidates who have basically said, elect us and you don't have to worry about it. Trump's going to be your next president, regardless of whether he's elected or not. We have candidates who have been behind this idea that the legislature versus the people could choose the electors that go to D.C. and cast that ballot, which would be taking power away from Arizona voters. That's frankly quite frightening. And I think national media is here and we're getting that kind of attention because they recognize that this really is a threat to democracy based off of the statements that these candidates have made themselves, not projection.
And Christine, I wonder if the higher vote that Adrian Fontes is pulling in right now, clearly ticket splitters are helping him out, is the result of the way Mark Finchem has been portrayed. He is clearly the he's the person who favors the most extreme positions on elections, hand counts, no early voting. Does that tell you that democracy did play a role in when some voters cast a ballot?
I'm not sure if that was why Republicans crossed over. I think it may just have been a factor of January 6th, and it's very difficult to have pictures of yourself on the steps of the Capitol, walking up to break windows and still win an election. I'm willing to overturn an election, to Julie's point, may have played some part of why Republicans were willing to cross over. But let's face it, Mark Finchem is the, let's go get him and storm the doors guy. The reason the national and international media is here, to your earlier question, is because of Kari Lake, because she is a movement. I mean, whether you like her or not, and we said the same thing as Republicans about Barack Obama, there just are some candidates who, like celebrities, have an it factor, and she has it, and that's why they're here to cover her, because whatever she does, people pay attention to.
Granted, but there's also the Trump factor with Kari Lake. She is Trump in every way and probably does Trump even better.
I mean, Arizona really is a litmus test for Trump and the Trump philosophy surviving. If all of these Trump-endorsed candidates win statewide, that's a really strong signal to Donald Trump. And I think he comes out and he announces that he's running in 2024, and he's got Arizona to point to as now they're mine. If this Trump-endorsed slate loses, then that's an entirely different message. And suddenly Democrats have hope that the country may be ready to move on from Donald Trump and from this talk of stolen elections.
Well, let's be
Real
clear.
quick.
If Donald Trump wants to run, Donald Trump is going to run without regard to what happens in any state of any country in the known universe.
Perhaps as soon as next week. And he is
Right,
watching.
right.
He's been posting on Truth Social that I'm watching you guys and get out and vote. Let's send it back to you.
Yeah, I thought he was going to make an announcement today about his future. He said he was going to make a very interesting announcement. We'll see what happens. The night is young, especially at Mar-a-Lago. The ballots are being counted in a very important spot tonight, and that's the Maricopa County Tabulation and Election Center in Phoenix.
All right, that is where we find Team 12's Bianca Bono. Bianca, so much has been going on there today. What is happening right now?
Well, right now the votes are being counted, guys, and the next votes that folks can expect to see are those who voted in person today, specifically those who took their ballot and ran it through a tabulation machine. Actually, it's a kind of a slow moment right now. I can show you. Specifically folks who took their ballot and ran it through this tabulator at the top of the election machine. That piece of equipment was the source, though, of some problems today. At 60 voting centers across Maricopa County, we know that there was a printing issue that meant that some ballots didn't have the markers printed dark enough on them, so they actually couldn't be read by that tabulator machine. So voters had a couple of options. They could either check out of the voting center and try a different location, or they could take their ballot and they could slide it into the slot here, which is being referred to as door number 3. A bipartisan team would then physically take those ballots to this tabulation center and count them. Those votes will be reflected in the totals coming out either late tonight or early tomorrow morning. So again, the next results to come out of here will be from those who voted in person today, specifically using those tabulators. I want to talk a little bit about this building specifically. A lot has changed here at the Maricopa County Elections Department since 2020. You may remember seeing some pretty striking images from 2020 of hundreds of protesters, folks like Alex Jones, descending on this building for large protests day after day. Folks who worked here at the Elections Department have received countless threats. So Sheriff Paul Penzone here in Maricopa County has decided to create a robust security plan. There is a metal fence that now surrounds this building and the parking lot. We in the media have additional protocols this year, actually prohibiting us from coming and going from the building like we have in years past. Chairman Bill Gates was asked about people who have used today's printing problems to allege voter disenfranchisement, which, by the way, has not been proven at all. Take a listen.
If they're going to come here to create disruptions, I think Sheriff Penzone has been very clear about it. They're welcome, but we would ask that they handle themselves in a professional, civil way. That's the way we handle things in Maricopa County. Problem is, we've had a lot of people from outside of Maricopa County trying to tell us how to handle things, trying to tell us how we run elections, and I think we know how to do that. I think people have shown incredible patience today, dealing with some challenges. But again, whoever wants to come, they can come.
And moving forward for the rest of the night, there isn't really a schedule as to when we can expect those results to drop. It really could be at any time. Officials do say that they expect 95 to 99% of the vote in Maricopa County to be counted by Friday. For now, guys, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Bianca, thanks. Another Arizona race that has the eyes of the nation on it. The U.S. Senate race between Republican Blake Masters and Democratic incumbent Mark Kelly. Our Chase Golightly is live in Tucson following the Democratic incumbent, Mark Kelly. But first,
me and Tram?
Let's go to Michael Doudna and the Blake Masters campaign. Michael?
People, whether they know it or not, a fight for basic human rights that we should take for granted, but we have to struggle to hold on to.
Yes, we're actually out here in Tucson right now covering the incumbent Senator Mark Kelly, who's been holding the event here at the Rialto Theater. You can see a packed crowd here as they're playing some other news of other elections going on across the nation. I have to tell you, these folks have been waiting a long time to see Senator Mark Kelly. And just looking around the room, there's a lot of people holding a drink in one hand and doing this with the other. And what that is looking to see the updated numbers of those preliminary ballots that are coming in right now. Of course, we know there's a long way to go, a lot more ballots to be counted, but These folks are excited. They're waiting to hear from the senator right now. They've been following this election for a while. They're liking what they're seeing so far, but as we've been talking about and kind of referring it to as a blue mirage, is that while it's looking like Democrats have a significant lead now, we know things can change tomorrow or the coming days. So they're trying to be patient. Senator Mark Kelly telling me that today. He's trying to be patient, but at the same time, he does think that he will be able to win this race and be able to maintain his U.S. Senate seat. Here's what he said earlier today, right before the polls closed.
I feel like I could win this tonight, but it could take a day. It could take a couple days. What's important is that we count all the votes. You know, and we don't question, you know, and say that the election is stolen. I mean, that's just dangerous.
That was a big point that Senator Kelly hit on today while he was speaking with his volunteers, while he was speaking with his supporters, is that this may take some time to make sure every single ballot is counted, every single vote is counted. And again, just spreading that message of just trying to be patient. But again, the folks here in this room are excited with what they're seeing so far. Will it maintain? Will it keep going? We'll just have to wait and see. And of course, we'll have to see what the incumbent senator himself has to stay here in front of his supporters. We're expecting that to happen anytime soon, but we'll just have to wait and see. So be sure to stick with us for the latest updates on what's going on here in Tucson. But for right now, we'll send it back to you in the Valley.
All right. Thanks so much, Chase, who is live down in Tucson with the Kelly campaign. Now let's go to the other side of the ticket, the Republican side for U.S. Senate. And that is Blake Masters. That's where we find Team 12's Michael Doudna. Michael, what is the mood out there tonight?
Yeah, guys, it's actually been a little bit quieter over the last few minutes. They still actually haven't shown any of the results on the big screen, so we haven't gotten that big reaction one way or another. And while we've heard from some smaller speakers, we have not heard from Blake Masters in any form or fashion. Although, actually, we just saw Blake Masters on the screen for the first time. And they got a big boo for seeing some of the results right now. Now, this is not totally unexpected. Masters always expected to be down early, but probably not as much as he is right now. He always felt that his key to end up winning this campaign was trying to tie Mark Kelly to Joe Biden on issues like immigration, the border, and crime. And the reality is, though, is that he still always needed a lot of the voters to come out today to make up that difference, and he's still hopeful that they may be able to in the near future.
We're feeling good. The numbers are breaking in our way. You know, we always knew they probably would. We just need every patriot, everybody. I mean, even if you're not a fired up grassroots Republican, right? If you're an independent, are you better off now than you were 2 years ago?
Now the question is exactly how many of those day of voters, those independents, will end up swinging towards his way and helping out to try to close that gap. And there's still a lot of that gap to close, but we do expect it to happen over the next several days and hours as we start to get more of those votes. For example, back in 2020, well, Mark Kelly won Maricopa County by a count of 52% to 48 or 49%. Right now, that margin for Mark Kelly is about 59% to 39, 40%. So there's a big margin, a big difference in what we saw in 2020. We expect it to shrink over the course of these votes getting counted, guys. Back to you.
All right, Michael, thanks so much. All right, we want to get back to some of the results in tonight's races. And here's a look at the race for Secretary of State, a very important position here. This office would be one of the offices tasked with certifying the results of the election. We're talking the 2024 election. So it's very important who sits in this office and the way they plan to conduct it. Right now, we've got two opponents. Democrat Adrian Fontes, he is bringing in 59.3% of the vote, and Mark Finchem is trailing quite a bit behind him at 40.7% of the votes coming in so far tonight.
Yeah, I think the headline here, Caribe, is just how wide this margin is. It's almost 20 points at this point. And obviously, this will change as the night goes on. Mark Finchem will pick up votes. I think the question is, and we may not know the answer for several days, what does, in the end, saying, I don't believe and buy into what happened in 2020, how much did that factor into if he loses his loss tonight to Adrian Fontes.
Right, so.
Because he was a hardline, Trump-supported candidate who never bought into this, was seen at the January 6th riot at the Capitol. So did all of this come back to hurt him in the end when people went to the ballot box?
Right, and their voices will speak loud and clear once we get these final results, which again, as we've been saying, we may not see that tonight. Well, we continue our live team coverage on election night. Our Jade Cunningham is standing by with the very latest on Adrian Fontes.
But first, let's start with Team 12's Jonathan McCall, who's out in Scottsdale at the Republican Watch Party. He's following the Fincham campaign. Jonathan?
Yeah, Mark Uribe, we are still waiting to learn anything about how Mark Fincham is feeling right now. He's kind of gone radio silent in the last few hours as we're starting to get more and more of these results. We do know that he, in fact, is here at the watch party. I want to show you a tweet that he posted about an hour ago of him on the floor greeting some of his supporters here at the watch party here tonight. A very busy day for Mr. Fincham. He actually was tweeting up a storm earlier in the day, commenting on some of those issues with the election in Maricopa County. He had a kind of a tweet storm for the majority of the day, but after 5 o'clock or so, we kind of really didn't hear from him. I got a chance to talk with him earlier today. He said that he was hoping that this race would be kind of wrapped up around midnight, and he was hoping for some positive news around that time. But as we know, early on, right now, he's trailing by a large margin to his Democratic rival, Adrian Fontes. But again, we do know that Mr. Fincham is here. We're still waiting to get more information from him. We've tried to reach out to his campaign to see if he would be available just for a comment. But we are going to continue to stay here and watch the party. A very kind of toned down mood right now. In just the last few moments, they actually popped up the first numbers, the first batch of results from Arizona showing the Senate race between Mark Kelly and Blake Masters. And obviously here that early number getting a lot of boos from the crowd here. But a lot of folks here obviously are hoping that their candidates will come out on top, and we'll continue to stay here and follow the races as they develop. Mark Uribe, back to you.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. I will say I do like the variety of music at these watch parties.
And there's a distinct difference, right?
Yes.
Let's get to the Democratic Watch Party now, where Jade Cunningham is following Adrian Fontes, who has a wide lead at this point in the race for Secretary of State.
All right, let's check in with Jade.
Hey, good evening. Yeah, you know, the momentum is up here in Phoenix. There is a lot of support here for Adrian Fontes, and Fontes telling us that he is feeling pretty good, especially with that early lead over his opponent. You know, earlier he was in the ballroom, he was shaking hands, talking with different supporters, thanking them for their support. He was able to take the stage also just a bit ago. When he took the stage, there was a loud cheer for him, you know, everyone waving the signs in support of the candidate. And when he took the stage, the first thing he did was thank the voters, thanking them for protecting democracy. And that really has been the theme tonight, as well as the theme throughout his entire campaign. He feels strongly about the election process, saying that he has always stood by it and that the system is very strong. Even during the 2020 election, when he was Maricopa County Recorder, he said he stands by those results. And just yesterday, and reiterating it again today, he said he will accept the results for this election no matter the outcome. Tonight, though, he has asked for people's patience as votes are being tallied, saying it'll be a process, but that's just because election workers are working hard to try and make sure every vote is accurately tallied. Take a listen.
We will, with level heads and respect, we will respect the process. We will make sure every vote gets counted across this great state of Arizona. In the meantime, let us celebrate democracy. Let us celebrate the idea that we have moved in our civilization away from the divine right of kings and into the rule of law, where every single one of us matters. And let's also remember that regardless of the results, we have good people working right now all across Arizona to make sure that we preserve and protect democracy.
Now, in regards to that lawsuit that was filed earlier this evening by the Republican Party, he says that he was not surprised that the lawsuit was filed, but he also says that the judge made the right decision in denying it. He now, though, is looking ahead. He is hoping this momentum will continue throughout the evening, and he is hopeful that he will become the 15th Democratic Secretary of State. Guys?
All right. Thank you so much, Jade.
Well, we know this is a lot of information to take in. We're throwing a lot at you with all of the races and the props and everything else. But all of this may be one of the most important midterm elections in recent memory. All of it is important, and that's why we're staying on so late tonight.
Absolutely. So we'll continue to track all the latest numbers and updates as the night goes on. Back here in the studio, our Team 12's William Pitts is breaking down this election by the numbers. And it all makes so much more sense when you can see it there graphically, Will. How are things looking?
And this is one of the graphics that means a lot. We've been talking about Arizona races. We want to show you how Arizona fits in to the national picture. This is every Senate race that's up for grabs tonight. And I'll give you a quick idea of how to read this map. White states, that means there's no Senate race up for grabs. If it's gray, like Nevada, that means not enough votes in to call it one way or the other. The darker colors, that means it's already called for that. The lighter colors means it's leaning either red, blue, either way. And you can see right here up at the top, this is what everybody's going for. This is control of the Senate up here. 50, that's where you want to get to, more or less. Democrats, of course, I have to get to 50 because Kamala Harris is the tiebreaker. That means they would have 51. Republicans have to get to 51 to overcome that. Right now, it's almost a dead heat, basically. And you can see how some of these are leaning. Of course, down here in Arizona, Mark Kelly leaning early, 58 points right there. So again, you can see that a lot of these are decided. California, they've already called that one. Colorado, they've called that one too. Some of these probably not called yet, but getting pretty close. Patty Murray, that one's probably going to go to Patty Murray as well, with 56.4% of the votes counted up in Washington State. But you can also see just how this is looking. Definitely some states that are not called yet, a couple in the South. Pennsylvania, that's up in the air a little bit right now. Also, Arizona's still up in the air. And again, some of those states that don't have races going on right now, guys.
Okay, well, thanks. Another big showdown tonight, the race for Attorney General. Democrat Chris Mays going up against the Republican Abe Hamadeh.
Team 12's Joe Dana is covering that race for us. And the Democrats, let's head over to Joe. Hey, Joe.
Hey, guys. Chris Mays is really one of the compelling stories from the Democratic Party. A girl who grew up on a tree farm in Prescott at Prescott High, was newspaper editor, student council body president, valedictorian, and the homecoming queen to boot. She went on to get a law degree, was a lifelong Republican until a couple of years ago, worked in the Napolitano administration, was a corporation commissioner. Now she is aiming for the Attorney General seat, has a 13 percentage point lead, but with less than half votes counted in the state. A little bit ago, she addressed the crowd here. Take a listen.
We are in this tonight because we nominated, say it with me, awesome, and they nominated crazy. We are in this tonight because our ideas take us forward, 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 and their ideas take us backward.
Mays pulls this off. It may be because she became so aggressive against the abortion ban in Arizona, arguing that there is a very specific privacy provision in the state constitution she believes protects the relationship between patient and doctor, and she vows to take a lawsuit up against this law to the state Supreme Court. She has made that a key provision of her campaign. Will it pay off among women and those who do support abortion rights who may be more moderate? That's one of the big questions as we look at the Mays and Hamadeh race. Guys, back to you.
Well, all the races are important, from the local to the federal. Now let's get over to some of the congressional races on the ballot.
Several races up for grabs tonight, could be very close. Bram, tell us what we need to know.
Yeah, these are the races that are going to really tell us how voters feel about President Joe Biden, how high gas prices, high food prices, high rent. These prices are the litmus test. So let's take a look. So far, Greg Stanton, two-term congressman from Phoenix, is passing that litmus test. He's up 63% to 37.1% over Kelly Cooper, a first-time candidate, restaurant owner. Need to point out we're still waiting for more ballots from Maricopa County. This is entirely in Maricopa County, this race. We're likely to get more day of ballots from Maricopa County after 10 p.m. tonight. So Greg Stanton looking very strong in CD4. Let's move on to CD1. David Schweikert, five-term incumbent, facing quite a challenge from newcomer Jevin Hodge, who's up 57% to 43%. Schweikert's been dogged by ethics violations. He was reprimanded by the full House, a very rare punishment for a sitting congressman. Moving on now to District 2, a district that became more red, more favoring Republican in redistricting, and Eli Crane leading that slightly over Tom O'Halloran, the incumbent. Could be a real challenge for O'Halloran to win that race in northern Arizona going down to eastern Arizona. Moving on now to District 6, southern Arizona, the Tucson area. Kirsten Engel, former state lawmaker, up 57% over Juan Ciscomani, a Republican, 43%. Former aide to Governor Doug Ducey, believed to be a Republican rising star. So let's keep our eye on that race. And lastly, we go to CD5, a deep red district. Andy Biggs has been the congressman there for several terms, since 2016, I believe. He is up by just 3 points, less than 3 points, over Javier Ramos, running for the third time, a Democrat who spent just $8,000, he told me, on this election. Kind of shocking. Andy Biggs will win this, but boy, this is a bit of a scare, and maybe says a lot about how that district has changed, even though it is even redder in redistricting than it was before. So kind of a puzzling outcome there. Let's send it back to you.
All right, seems to be a lot of surprises even at this early hour. All right, we'll keep checking in with Bram Resnick, but in the meantime, let's head over to Team 12's William Pitts. He is tracking all of this election on social media.
And William, what's tracking more, Left Shark or door number 3?
Door number 3, most definitely, is what's trending. Actually, cheating was trending on Twitter earlier today. Take a look here from NBC earlier today that the voter issues, the tabulation issues, were leading a lot of politicians and pundits to start spreading some misleading or false information. We have some of that misleading and false information right here. Ronna McDaniel, she is the GOP chairwoman, talking about the election administered by the Democrat Secretary of State, Katie Hobbs. Katie Hobbs doesn't actually administer the election. The county administers the election. The same thing, though, echoed by Ted Cruz, calling out the current Secretary of State, Katie Hobbs, and also Mark Finchem, who is running for Secretary of State, who is talking about Katie Hobbs purchasing the tabulation machines that aren't working up to standards. Katie Hobbs doesn't actually administer them. She does certify those machines, and they were certified, we're told, before the election, but she doesn't actually run those. Of course, Maricopa County sending out videos today about what was going on, the issues with those machines and the printers that ended up being the problem. And that's one of the things that was trending a lot today, was the misinformation or the disinformation, people jumping on, piling on about how the tabulating machines were the problem and there must be something wrong, when in reality, we waited a little bit and found out that the real issue, guys, was the printers, and that the tabulation machines were working just fine the whole time.
Yeah, well, we have printer problems here at the station, too.
And a big difference between the ballots and tabulation machines versus a printer.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, there's a lot of props that are on the ballot this election.
Yeah, there were 10 this time around, and a prop is your chance to change the way we vote, the way we do things in Arizona, the political landscape. It falls to you. A yes vote means you want to make a change. A no vote means the status quo remains in place. The first one, Prop 131, that would install a lieutenant governor in Arizona, something we don't have. Our Secretary of State is the number 2 in line should the governor leave. A lieutenant governor would become the number 2. And if this holds true, and at 54% yes is leading it, that means as of 2026, Arizona would have a lieutenant governor.
All right, let's take a look at Prop 209. This is medical debt here. A yes vote would help to protect people who do owe quite a bit of money in medical debt against predatory debt collectors. So it would avoid them losing their homes, their cars, and other possessions. A yes vote right now is winning this by a pretty large margin here, 75.25% for the yes votes.
Many of you also voting for change when it comes to campaign finance. This would put a spotlight on dark money in politics so that you would know who is supporting the candidate that you may or may not vote for.
On Proposition 308, this is in-state tuition for Dreamers. This would allow Dreamers who came to this country as children from their parents from another country illegally. This would allow them to receive in-state tuition at colleges here in Arizona as long as they have gone to high school here in Arizona. Yes votes would allow this to happen, and right now this is leading 55.48%, the no votes at 44%.
Voter ID law, and this would toughen ID requirements for voting in person or by mail. And no, many of you don't want to see the way we do things change. Right now, that no vote leading the yes vote. So if this holds true, things would remain the same.
All right, and we want to bring back in Team 12 political insider Bram Resnick to chat a little bit. Bram, we haven't talked that much about the Latino vote. I mean, we have the fourth largest Latino population in our state here in Arizona, across the country. How is that vote playing into this midterm election?
It appears here in Arizona, the Latino vote, which is different from the Latino vote in California, in Texas, and certainly in Florida, which is a very diverse Latino community. The Latino community here was perhaps more affected by inflation issues, economic issues, rent issues, grocery prices than perhaps other voters. At the same time, my reporting showed that abortion might not be as clear-cut an issue as it might have been years ago. There appears to be a divide among younger Latino women and older Latinos in their families on the issue of reproductive rights. Younger women more in step perhaps with younger women as a whole in the country and favoring it, older Latinos not favoring it. But talking to a longtime organizer, I asked her what matters, and she was saying it's inflation, it's the economy, which is tough because she was on the side of Democrats doing the organizing. So.
If we had talked about this 4 or 5 months ago, when the Supreme Court initially came in and talked about Roe versus Wade, I would have said this is the galvanizing issue that could define the midterm. But now, every day, when you go to the gas station, when you go in the grocery store, everywhere you look, inflation is slammed into your face. And I think that's what we're seeing playing out across the country tonight.
I think, analysts will study this for years, the impact of the Dobbs decision. Certainly here in Arizona, until just a few weeks ago, the Civil War era ban was in the headlines, and whether that was going to be the law, now it's up in the air.
All right, Bram, thanks. Our Decision 2022 live coverage continues on 12 News. Stay with us.
Election night in Arizona continues now on 12 News at 10. The entire 12 News team live, ready to bring you results and reactions. Coverage of the midterm elections on 12 News at 10 continues now.
Tonight is the night for Decision 2022, and all eyes are on Arizona. And tonight we are tracking all of the important races from all across the state. Welcome to 12 News at 10. I'm Caribe Divine.
I'm Mark Curtis. We appreciate you joining us. We'll have a complete live coverage coming your way over the next 2 hours. But first, let's get right to the latest vote totals in the major races. And it starts with the race for Arizona governor, where Katie Hobbs, and again, we have just had one big vote drop so far. The next one could be coming. We'll get to Bram on that in just a second. But right now, Katie Hobbs with a sizable lead over Kari Lake. But if you think back to the primary, Kari Lake was trailing Karen Taylor Robeson and overnight caught up to her and passed her. So hold on, this could change.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of what we're seeing are those mail-in ballots that were received earlier. Here's another big race that is being watched across the country. This is the race for U.S. Senate. Mark Kelly is the incumbent. He is running to keep his seat, and right now he is leading this race by quite a bit. Blake Masters, his Republican opponent, who is endorsed by Donald Trump, has 40% of the vote right now, but Mark Kelly is kind of blazing through him at this hour, 57.8% for U.S. Senate.
Next up, Secretary of State Adrian Fontes, in maybe the most surprising gap of a margin of a lead that we've seen tonight, leading Mark Finchem almost by 20 points, 59 to 41%.
Moving on to the race for Arizona Attorney General, Chris Mays, 56.5% of the vote. On the Democratic ticket, on the Republican side, Abe Hamadeh is trailing behind her, 43.5% for Arizona Attorney General.
Arizona Superintendent of Public Instruction Kathy Hoffman, the incumbent, with a wide lead over Tom Horn, who once held this office, 56 to 43%.
And for the office of State Treasurer, the incumbent right now is Kimberly Yee. She's currently in the seat. She is running for re-election to keep her position, 50.3% of the vote right now. So she is leading Martin Quesada, who is an attorney, just by a slight bit there, just 49.7%. So she is not leading by much at this hour.
And the Corporation Commission, and this has been holding true for most of the night. Arizona will choose two, and right now it's the two Democrats with the lead over their two Republican challengers.
And here's a look at Maricopa County Attorney Julie Gunnigal is leading this race currently, 53.4% over the acting Maricopa County Attorney General, who is Rachel Mitchell. She is in the position now after the resignation of the late Alistair Adele. She is vying for this position, 46.6% of the vote right now. She is trailing her Democratic opponent.
All right, so what do these numbers really mean here in Arizona? This is the early going. We know that in Arizona, nothing happens quickly. We probably won't know a decided winner tonight, maybe not even tomorrow, and there could be lawsuits to come. Let's check in with our political insider, Bram Resnick.
So let's talk about the numbers that we're looking at. My estimate is about half the ballots have been counted. These reflect early ballots, largely from Maricopa County, as well as ballots from Pima County, Cochise County, Yuma County. Nothing yet from a lot of the other counties. We're still waiting. On the Democratic side, they're going to be waiting for Navajo, the Navajo Nation vote to come in. That could be big for the Democrats, maybe the one last big vote, and I think also Coconino County if you're a Democrat. So a lot of Republican ballots are still out there right now, and that's why. And I'll also say, and we were talking about this during the break, I'm having a flashback to 2020 right now, because we were talking about the Blue Mirage that night. Joe Biden had a significant lead over Donald Trump about this time, 10 p.m., on election night. And then the Republican votes started coming in. The day of votes started coming in. And that lead began to shrink into the next day. And Biden did hold on for victory. It feels like we're near that point right now. We are expecting within the next hour or two Maricopa County to release the day of vote, which we know was heavily Republican today here in Maricopa County. So that's what we're all waiting for And I know a lot of Democrats out there are just.
And so when that
really
happens,
anxious.
there's a lot of races that are expected to be very close. So, for example, the race for Arizona governor, possibly U.S. Senate. We have some new laws in Arizona when it comes to vote recounts.
Right.
How could that play into what we're predicting to see, which is those very close races?
So we've been talking as if we're going to know the results by the end of the week, and that's very likely. However, there is a new law triggered by Donald Trump's defeat in 2020. It was a Republican-backed law that would set in place a lower threshold for an automatic recount in an election. So if that law had been in effect in 2020, we would have had a recount of the presidential election in Arizona. It was a 11,000 vote margin, a victory for Joe Biden. The threshold then would have been 15,000 votes for an automatic recount. So there would have been 5 races that had an automatic recount back then. It's likely that some of these races, these statewide races, are going to be close enough for an automatic recount. What does that mean for the results? We might not know until well into December. Get the final result until well into December if there is an automatic recount in any of these races.
Wow.
I don't know how much you've been able to watch what's happening nationally tonight, but a lot of people were predicting a red wave, a tsunami. It doesn't appear, at least from what I've seen, to be happening.
Certainly, again, my indicator is Congress, and Greg Stanton appears to be comfortably in control in his race. That's significant. You'd think if there were a red wave, he may have been vulnerable to it, but it looks like he's going to hold on. Tom O'Halloran might not. And I'm going to hold it right there because I believe Kari Lake has now taken the stage.
Let's get you there live.
Oh, okay.
They're announcing
Jump
that
the gun.
she will be eventually coming on live. I want to get back to the DOJ, who is monitoring the elections. How normal is this? Is this something that is normal to happen?
It's actually normal. Let's get it to Kari Lake.
We told you at the beginning of the night.
But in Arizona's 4th congressional district,
who was going to be able to control
I think
the
we
House
can
of
say with
Representatives.
some certainty
Republicans have to win 22.
that we have come out on top.
Democrats have to win 44.
I don't think that's Kari Lake. I think that's Congressman Greg Stanton.
And I think he just declared victory.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what that sounded like to me.
All right. Well, we are obviously monitoring the Kari Lake situation. We will get you there as soon as she takes the stage to see what she has to say in her very tight race against Katie Hobbs, her Democratic challenger. But David Schweikert, okay, we understand now that Kari Lake is on this stage. Let's try it again.
And don't let those cheaters and crooks think anything different. Don't let them doubt. Don't let them put doubt in you. We have a movement. We have a movement and we know it. Did you feel it? Did you feel that movement? You know, I did a lot of praying to God. I've been praying to God every day, all day. And I said to him, you make this victory come whatever way you want. If it comes decisive on election day, then bring it to us that way. If we have to fight through the BS and the garbage, then we will fight through the BS and the garbage. But how do you get fair and free elections? You have to fight and win to make them fair and free. And we needed another stark reminder that we have incompetent people running the show in Arizona. Who is ready for a change? We had great patriots around this state show up today. It was so amazing. They showed up at the polls early this morning, only to be told the election equipment didn't work. 2 minutes into voting, we had people being told, well, you're going to have to put your little ballot over here into another box. Guys, the fake media back there tried to tell us we were wrong for asking questions about our elections. Guess what? We are going to win this. We are going to win this. How many of you remember a couple months ago, August 2nd, the primary election? Wasn't that long ago. We came out and they said, oh, wow, they're 10 points down. The fake news was asking us to concede. And we kept climbing. We turned 15 points around and we won by 5 points. I just want you to know it's early. It's very early, and if we have to take this fight through, we will. If it takes hours or days, we will. But the great news is every single drop of election ballots that have come in the last 3 drops have shown us up 85%, 87%, 81%. I just want the propagandists back there to know, don't embarrass yourselves. Don't embarrass yourselves. Don't do it again. You've done it too many times. But what I want you to know is that the same movement we had last night at that rally in Prescott, the same movement we had at that rally in Scottsdale, the same movement we had at the rallies we've had before with record people is the same movement we have right this second. Nothing has changed. And I want you to know we are going to monitor the ballots. We got to work in this system that we have right now. And as they continue to come in and our numbers go up like they did last time, when we win, first line of action is to restore honesty to Arizona elections. Now, God did not put us on this fight because it was going to be easy. Not one thing that we've had to go through has been easy. We beat back a billionaire in the establishment, okay? Let's just be frank. We have had everyone come against us, tens of millions of dollars in spending coming against us. Nothing has been easy. When corruption has risen to the level that it's at right now, it takes tough, strong people. Are you tough and strong? Are you willing to continue this fight? Are you willing for incompetency to play itself out and the victory to come at us? I am willing to wait for that, and when we win, and I think it will be within hours, we will declare victory, and we will get to work turning this around. No more incompetency and no more corruption in Arizona elections. Now, I love you. I love you.
All right, you've been listening live to Kari Lake. Admonishing almost everybody, the Arizona election system, the media.
Oh, wait, she's coming back to the podium. Okay. Let's listen in.
Competency 101. Then we had August 2nd, 2022, incompetency in elections 202. And now we're at incompetency in elections 303. We need honest elections, and we're going to bring them to you, Arizona. I assure you of that. The system we have right now does not work. We, the people, deserve to know on election night the winner and the loser. And we will bring that kind of election back to Arizona. I assure you of that. I love you too. I'm looking out, guys, I'm looking out here at these beautiful faces of the children. Put your hand up if you're a young one in this audience, if you're a child. This is what it is about. We got involved for our children, and we will not stop fighting until we have every legal vote counted. So we're going to be patient. We're going to be patient, guys. We're going to wait. Right now, I told you the votes that are coming in are going our way, 81, 85, and 87%. And we will take the victory when it comes, and we will turn this around. Thank you, everybody. Let the partying begin. We know this movement is just beginning. I love you, Arizona. I love you, Arizona.
All right, let's bring in political insider Bram Resnick. Bram, your initial reactions to what Kari Lake is saying.
Well, you know, that's classic Kari Lake, starting off talking about the cheaters and the stealers and the corrupt election and incompetence. And we're going to bring back a free and fair election, and yet she's perfectly willing to accept an election result.
And a fake media.
If she wins, fake media, of course. And also saying when we win within hours. Now, I'm not saying she's not going to win, but I can tell you it's not going to happen within hours. There just aren't that many ballots that are likely to be dropped tonight that would bring Kari Lake even with Katie Hobbs. She's now down 160,000 votes to her, so, and 13 points. That's not happening within hours, that we can say. She just seemed a little, tired, end of a campaign. These are tough campaigns. You have to respect all the candidates, whatever you think of them. Running for office is really, really hard work, and it is exhausting if you're doing it right. And we may have seen some of that tonight. And it reminded me what she said about the fight is earlier we had Kelly Ward, the chair of the Arizona Republican Party, talking about the, 35 attorneys?
Yeah, ready to go.
Yeah, ready to go.
At the hotel.
I don't know what you need 35 attorneys for. Certainly I know they go to polling places and they're out there monitoring things. I'm sure there's a fleet of Democratic attorneys, but that's a lot of lawyers.
Yeah.
I don't know. We shall see. We've laid out for you what we expect to happen over the next few hours, what's likely to happen till tomorrow. We should get more ballots through the evening. If you want to stay up and go to the Secretary of State's website and check it out for yourself, you will see the number of ballots keep coming in through midnight, maybe even until 1 a.m.
Yeah.
So that's how that's going to go. And Wednesday is typically a let's get organized here day. How many ballots do we have left? That's really important because that tells you the number of ballots left, tells you how high a hill the candidates have to climb and whether there are enough ballots left for them to make that climb.
All right, Bram, we'll get back to you in just a few minutes, but in the meantime, we're going to check in with Team 12's Colleen Sakura. She is reporting on the Katie Hobbs campaign. Colleen.
Yeah, good evening, guys. We heard from Secretary of State Katie Hobbs briefly this evening. Currently on stage is Congressman Ruben Gallego, but Katie Hobbs was on stage a little bit earlier as she celebrated those early election results that we've been talking about, saying that she was feeling good, but despite that early lead, she told us earlier today that she does not expect to know who Arizona's next governor is going to be, which lines up with everything that we are saying. So she expects that this race between her and Kari Lake is going to be so tight that it will trigger an automatic recount. Now, in her speech tonight, she addressed the debunked conspiracy theories Republican candidates for the statewide races have repeated regarding the 2020 election and called those unacceptable. She told her supporters here it's likely to be a long night, but saying she trusts the county elections officials will conduct a free and fair election.
I know that we're all eager to find out who won each of these incredibly important races, but we need to be patient and wait for every vote to be counted. Because every single vote matters, and every single vote counts equally.
And back out here live at the Arizona Democratic Watch Party, while Hobbs was on stage, she talked about how she thanks all the volunteers who worked so hard to get to the campaign to this point. And when we asked Hobbs earlier today if there was anything that she would have done differently in the campaign, she said no, she was proud of the campaign that she ran and was not second-guessing any of the campaign's decisions. But for now, we're live out here in downtown Phoenix. Colleen Sakura, 12 News.
Colleen, thanks. Another Arizona race that has the eyes of the nation on it, that U.S. Senate race between Republican Blake Masters, the Trump-endorsed candidate, and Democratic incumbent Mark Kelly, who currently has the lead. Chase Golightly is live in Tucson following Mark Kelly's campaign, but let's start with Michael Doudna and the Masters campaign. Michael is in Scottsdale at the Republican Watch Party. Michael?
Yeah, guys, we've heard from Kari Lake, but we have heard pretty much nothing from Blake Masters. Multiple requests, in fact, out to Blake Masters to get a reaction to what we've seen with the results so far have gone unanswered. Now, Masters always expected to be down today. They expected these early votes to really go in favor of Democrats, but he is trailing by even more than Kari Lake is. And we just heard from Lake talking about how she expects a future fight over the next several days. Well, Masters has even more ground to make up as the early votes keep on coming in. So there's a lot of work still to do if he hopes to end up winning this election. And a lot of it will come down to exactly how many of those early of the day of votes that are going in and being counted right now end up going in his favor. But he still has a lot of work to do, and that's really where his hope lies right now.
Feeling great. We've got the momentum. At the end of every race, there's always one candidate playing offense with a strong message. There's always one candidate just playing defense, trying to bottle it up, and that's Mark Kelly. So we have the offense. We've got the momentum. I'm the underdog, but we're going to win.
The question is, will that momentum carry him away to the victory? Right now, he has a lot of work to do. Now, we do expect this count to continue for some time. It's going to likely come down to the wire, and it may not be tonight that we actually know the final result in this race. Guys, back to you.
Okay, Michael, thanks. Now let's go to Tucson, where our Chase Go Lightly is following the Democratic incumbent, Mark Kelly, and his run for Senate. Chase?
As of right now, we have not seen from Senator Mark Kelly. What's been going on here for really the past 2 hours is that they played some of his campaign ads on this big screen behind me. They've been giving live updates of elections happening here and across the country. And they've really just played promotional videos. And honestly, while this crowd is excited, they are getting a little restless, wanting to see him. In fact, we've seen just a handful of people actually have to go out. We are getting close to 10:30 at night, and despite at this time Senator Mark Kelly, as I'm looking at the results, being ahead by Republican Blake Masters by about 240,000 votes, we have not heard anything from the senator at this time. Of course, we know it was a busy day for him in his campaign. He told us they were still going and knocking on doors. They were still making phone calls, and they really did expect this race to be neck and neck, close to the wire. We're not saying that's not going to happen, but even at this time, like I said, he's currently leading by 240,000 votes, which he was telling us today was going to be a little bit closer. Of course, that could still happen. We'll have to wait and see as the rest of the night goes on and in the coming days. But with it being the very last day for people to turn in the votes, here's what he wanted his final message to be to Arizonans who may have still been on the fence earlier today.
You know, I'm a 25-year veteran of the United States Navy, a combat veteran. I served at NASA as an astronaut. I've been in the United States Senate now for about 22 months. I've worked incredibly hard in the spirit of other senators like John McCain, working across the aisle to get stuff done for Arizona.
And the senator also touted some of his accomplishment while in the U.S. Senate, talking about the CHIPS Act, which he says will bring tens of thousands of jobs to Arizona. He was talking about the infrastructure bill that he was a part of as well, and just touting some of the things that he's accomplished currently in his U.S. Senate seat. Again, back out here at the Rialto Theater, we're still waiting for the senator to come out and address all of his supporters here. Still a packed room, people hanging out, checking their phones as more ballots are being counted. Of course, we'll be sure to bring you the latest. We'll have to see when exactly the senator will be coming out here to address this crowd, but of course, we'll be sure to let you know once that does happen. But for now, we're live in Tucson. Chase Go Lightly, 12 News.
All right, Chase, thanks. The ballots are being counted in a very important spot tonight, and that's the Maricopa County Tabulation and Election Center in Phoenix.
And that is where we find Team 12's Bianca Bodo reporting for us tonight. Hey, Bianca.
Hey, guys. Good evening once again. It has been a long day for Maricopa County election workers, and there's still a long night ahead for them. They are right inside this building working so hard to make sure that your vote is counted. But we do know there were some issues at polling places, specifically at 60 voting centers across Maricopa County today, and it was a printing issue preventing some ballots from being able to be run through the tabulation machines. Voters still had options to make sure they could cast a ballot today, but no less, the issue did prompt some outrage, specifically within the GOP. In fact, the RNC teamed up with the Masters hours and late campaigns, and even filed an emergency motion to try and extend polling place hours until 10 p.m. tonight. A judge heard their argument. They also heard from the attorneys on the county side and ultimately denied that request. So polls closed at 7 o'clock as usual. The judge determined that it was clear that voters had an option to cast their ballots today. We recently talked to Maricopa County Sheriff Paul Penzone. He said that he was closely monitoring those issues and the chatter on social media today. Take a listen.
We are monitoring everything and anything as it relates to those public sites and places that we can see what people's intents are, what the dialogue is, and how it's trending to make sure we're keeping everybody safe. As far as people coming to Arizona, if you want to come and enjoy a round of golf, great. If you want to come stand out front and be peaceful, you're welcome to do that also. But if you're going to come here and try to influence what goes on in Maricopa County, it's the wrong place to land. So I take it as a destination vacation, not as a destination to be disruptive, and we're fine.
And Penzone says he and his team have over-prepared for Election Day, but there is a significant presence outside this building. Thankfully, we're told it's been a quiet night for them so far, but again, they're monitoring everything that you and I are seeing on social media. I just want to point out and again remind our viewers that folks here from the County Elections Department say they expect to have 95 to 99% of ballots in Maricopa County counted by Friday. And guys, that's completely normal. Back to you.
All right, Bianca, thank you so much. Let's head now to downtown Phoenix.
And we will check in with Team 12's Joe Dana, who's live with the candidates on the Democratic ticket. Joe?
Mark, a celebratory mood here at the Democratic headquarters, but they know the real fight really hasn't begun yet until these major ballot drops come in. If you could put yourself in the position of a year or two ago during the pandemic, school boards, administrators and teachers were under such pressure and so much strain to make tough decisions. In the middle of it all was Superintendent Kathy Hoffman. She is hoping for a second term as superintendent. Right now, she has a fairly comfortable lead. She's up against Republican Tom Horn, a longtime veteran politician himself. Here's what Hoffman told the crowd a little earlier today.
I am feeling cautiously optimistic that I will be the first superintendent to win re-election in over a decade. But regardless of the end results, I am so proud of these last 4 years, and it has been my highest honor to serve this great state as your superintendent. Thank you, and have a wonderful election night.
The next superintendent has a big job ahead as the state embarks on a major experiment with universal vouchers for everyone, the first state to do so, along with other questions related to school funding and some what you could call culture war issues that are also playing out more on cable news, but yes, also in some school boards around the state. For now, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Joe, we'll check back in with you. Thanks. Let's get back to the races with the latest vote totals in Decision 2022.
All right, we'll start first with the office of Arizona Governor. Right now, Katie Hobbs is leading 56.6% of the vote. Kari Lake at 43.4%. But as you heard her just a little while ago take the podium, she is still very optimistic about the results tonight being in her favor once all of the votes have been counted.
In the race for U.S. Senate, Mark Kelly holds the seat right now, and he leads his challenger, Blake Masters, by 17 points. Mark Victor, who dropped out about a week ago, picked up about 2.3% of the vote, but right now it's Mark Kelly holding on.
All right, taking a look right now at the race for Secretary of State, Adrian Fontes has nearly a 20 percentage point lead over Mark Finchem, the Republican, the very far-right candidate endorsed by Donald Trump. Mark Finchem right now at 40.9%, Adrian Fontes at 59.1%.
In the race for Attorney General, it's Chris Mays with a wide lead over her Republican challenger, Abraham Hamadeh. We'll see what happens as the night goes on, but so far in all of these races, you see the Democrat, and this bears out because of the voting habits of Republicans and Democrats in the state. Democrats typically vote by mail, so their votes have been counted and tabulated, and you're seeing a lot of the Democratic vote right now. the Republican vote, the Republicans who came out today and waited in line and withstood some of the issues that were at some of the polling places, their votes are being counted right now.
All right, looking at the race for Maricopa County Attorney. Rachel Mitchell is the acting county attorney right now. She is vying for this office, but she is trailing behind Julie Gunnigal, who is on the Democratic side of this ticket with 53.4% of the votes that are coming in so far tonight.
All right, let's bring in Bram Resnick for a little analysis. And Bram, we just have 35 seconds. Anything sticking out to you at this point?
Only that the last race you just showed us, Julie Gunnigal versus Rachel Mitchell. Julie Gunnigal is really on the bubble. It's unclear whether she can withstand all the Republican ballots that we expect to be dropped over the next few hours tonight and in coming days. That's not a large enough lead, it appears.
All right, Bram, thank you so much. We're going to continue our coverage. We're going to take a little break and we'll be right back.
Election night in Arizona continues now on 12 News at 10. The entire 12 News team live, ready to bring you results and reactions. Coverage of the midterm elections on 12 News at 10 continues now.
And welcome back, everyone, to 12 News coverage, continuing coverage of Decision 2022. We had our first big drop of votes at around 7 o'clock. We're waiting for our next one, which could come in within the next few minutes. But right now, it's Adrian Fontes in the race for Secretary of State with a almost 20-point lead over his Republican challenger, Mark Finchem.
And we have our Team 12's Jonathan McCall. He is covering the Finchem race tonight. Jonathan, when we checked in with you a little bit earlier, you had not heard or seen from Finchem. What is the latest?
Yeah, we're still waiting to get some type of response from Mark Finchem. We haven't heard a whole lot from him in the last few hours since we started getting those first batch of results, and obviously he is trailing by a wide margin at this point, but we are still waiting trying to get in contact with him, but we do know that he is indeed here at this watch party. There is a tweet that he posted about an hour and a half ago or so, out on the floor talking with supporters and some of his constituents here at the party tonight, saying that he's going to talk soon, but again, we have not heard a whole lot from him in the last few hours. That was a completely different scene from earlier in the day when he kind of lit up Twitter with a number of tweets kind of criticizing the election problems that manifested today in Maricopa County. But again, still not heard from Mark Finchem in the last few hours since we started getting those results. One thing he did talk to me, though, earlier today was about the need to vote. He said he wanted everyone who could legally vote to make sure that they got out and voted.
And if the people of Arizona, I would love to see every single eligible voter vote. Because in that, we are going to see what the people truly want to have. And if people choose not to vote, their voice isn't heard. I don't like that. I truly like to hear from everyone.
And Finchem, who has been a vocal supporter of former President Donald Trump and has questioned the results of the 2020 election, if what he asked for is for folks to go to the polls and make their votes count, right now they're sending a very loud message about exactly what they're looking for in their next Secretary of State. Right now, he is trailing Adrian Fontes by a very wide margin. So those votes, he said he wanted folks to go out to the polls, make their voices heard, make those votes count. And obviously, people have done that, and they are right now, as of right now, not showing a whole lot of support for Mark Finchem. But like Kari Lake said, there's still a large number of drops still to come. Hopefully, Mark Finchem in that same camp, maybe he can also get some votes with those future batches that are on the way. Mark and Caribe.
Jonathan, let me ask you a question before we move on. You've been there all night. You were there when they were setting up and the people started coming in. Has any of the air left the room as these results have come in, this early batch of results that are not favorable for Republicans?
Hey, you want to know something, Mark and Caribe? They have not posted. Typically, they've shown the results from other races all across the country on the big screen behind us. They have not posted any results from any of the races here in Arizona except for one. They actually did post the Senate race between Mark Kelly and Blake Masters, and obviously in that race, Blake Masters is losing as well early on. So the people are still here, people are still hopeful, and they're still optimistic, but so far no one has really been able to kind of gauge exactly where things stand. We saw Kari Lake come out a little while ago saying that they're optimistic about some of the batches that they're getting from some of the southern counties, including Cochise County, where she says right now about 79% of the vote there from the same day voting is expected to go to her. So right now, folks are obviously they're monitoring the results as they come in, but no one has actually seen them posted up on the big screen or anything like that. We'll hear a couple of cheers when we do get those national results from some of those other key races like Pennsylvania, Florida, and Georgia as well.
All right, really interesting. Thanks so much, Jonathan.
All right, now to the Democratic Watch Party, where Jade Cunningham continues to follow the Adrian Fontes campaign. Jade?
Yeah, good evening. We are here following the Adrian Fontes campaign. He has told us from the very beginning today that he is feeling pretty good. He was able to take the stage maybe an hour or two ago, talk to his supporters, thanking them for being here tonight, thanking them for protecting democracy. Still, though, the night is young, so they are just anxiously awaiting to see what comes of these election results. He also told people that it doesn't really matter what one's party affiliation is, that every vote matters. He also says it's important to respect the process and that every vote will be counted. Now, in terms of this particular race, he has said before that that it's not entirely a slam dunk. He knows that this is going to be a close one. Still, he maintains that he is the stronger candidate. Earlier today, there was that issue with the tabulation machines. Fontes saying these systems are technical. Glitches do happen. They're not 100%, but he wants to assure voters that they are still accurate, secure, and all votes cast will be tabulated. Now, in regards to the lawsuit that was filed by the Republican Party earlier this evening, that was denied, and Fontes saying the judge made the right decision in that. Voters had an opportunity, he says, to vote early, and the county had contingencies in place all day long, calling it a media stunt by the Republicans. Now, he wanted to make sure, though, people understand that the process with these elections will produce accurate results. So take a listen.
Not only are they fair and balanced, but it takes a little time to get results because they're very thorough in the way that they process the ballots and validate the signatures and then go through and tabulate things. So we've always had a couple of days at least after Election Day before results happen. Be patient and honor the Americans that have run the process. They're doing it for all of us, and we've got to stand for them.
Fontes was able to speak with the crowd again just an hour or two ago. He is expected to take the stage maybe again a little bit later. That is something that we are waiting, but he says right now, again, we just have to be patient. Guys?
All right, Jade Cunningham with the Adrian Fontes campaign, thank you so much. Well, there is a lot at stake tonight in this election for both political parties.
Bram is once again joined by two of our political insiders, one Republican, one Democrat. And Bram, we heard terms from Kari Lake like BS, garbage, incompetent, all talking about the Arizona election system. I guess she doesn't adhere to that old saying, don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Kari Lake doesn't adhere to many of the old sayings. So I'm not sure what more could be said about the way she, conducts herself on the campaign trail. But I do want to get to something that's really important and doesn't get a lot of attention, which is what is our legislature going to look like? Because they make the laws that affect all of us, and there's some really interesting dynamics, interesting races tonight. We're going to talk about with Julie Urfley and Christine Jones. Julie, start us off. Democrats are ahead.
They are so far, and especially in several districts that they've been watching in the state Senate, where they've been hoping to at least tie in the state Senate. You have, for instance, LD4, which encompasses a lot of Paradise Valley, Scottsdale, a lot of the old LD28. You have two incumbents running against each other.
That's in the Senate race, LD4, Legislative District 4.
Christine Marsh and Nancy Bartow. Right now, Christine Marsh is leading by a pretty sizable majority, basically 58 to 42. You also have LD2, which is more North Phoenix, kind of up by the 101, up near Anthem. And that's Jeannie Castine, who's also leading by a similar margin against Steve Kaiser.
Senate race?
That is state Senate.
And those are important because Democrats might be able to get a tie in the Senate if these numbers of this trend continues.
Correct. And in LD9, as well as another one, which is Mesa, where Democrats are also looking. Right now, they're ahead in both of the House races as well. So that could end up being a district that leans towards Democrats, which that was considered to be very
That would be a surprise. Legislative District 9, Russell Pierce's sister, Kathy, is running along with Marianne Mendoza.
Correct. And Kathy Pierce is currently in third place.
In third place. Which races are you looking at?
Well, I think we have to acknowledge that Ken Bennett, the former president of the Senate and the former Secretary of State here in Arizona, former candidate for governor as well, is now coming back to the Senate to represent his old District 1, which is sort of northern Arizona, and by a wide margin. Of course, the Bennetts are very well known in northern Arizona and very well beloved, and Ken was a good member, so I look forward to that. I think it's interesting, Bram, to put kind of the period at the end of the sentence on the Rusty Bowers years. Rusty has a lot of fans in this state, and he's been a good speaker, and he's gotten a lot of criticism for speaking truth to power. And, whether you agree with him or not, he's a lovely human being, and he's gone through a lot. And David Farnsworth is going to pick up that seat that he was running for, and so that's an interesting end of that story.
Farnsworth defeated Bowers
in the
primary, and Rusty Bowers does not have many fans at that Republican event we've been seeing tonight.
Not at all. And just one thing to pick up on Julie's point about LD4, there's also an interesting thing happening on the House side. There are 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat there. And again, the Democrat has a lead, but the day of voters in LD4 were so disproportionately in favor of Republicans. It's possible that Matt Gress and Maria Sims, the 2 Republicans running there, could both pick up those seats and the Democrats not get any there.
And Democrats have not had a role to play in the Senate in the House and Senate, I should say, in many, many years. Yeah. We said this Democrats might gain a tie. What would a tie do?
Well, they'd have to split power, and that would be huge because that would allow Democrats to stop a lot of what Republicans have been able to basically steamroll through the legislature. If you are in the majority, that means you control all of the chairs of the committees. That means that you set the agenda. That means essentially what we've seen in Arizona is that you control the budget 100%, which of course is the most important feature down at that legislature. So if we, by chance, had a Governor Kari Lake, but we had Democrats splitting, at least, in the Senate, that would be huge because that would, for the first time in a number of years, mean that Republicans would not have a hold on everything down at the Capitol. They would not have both the House, the Senate, and the governors.
And I know there are lots of folks who take a close look at the potential composition of this legislature and say, at least on the Republican side, this could be one of the farthest right legislatures we've seen here already. There is a Freedom Caucus mimicking the Freedom Caucus we see in Congress. Yeah. How do you view that?
Well, it could be really interesting if it's the furthest right Republican caucus and the furthest left Democratic caucus, and they actually have to get together and meet with each other. There could be a food fight literally every single day. But isn't it time? Isn't it time that the 2 parties got together and maybe follow the Ted Stevens Senator Inouye model in the Commerce Committee, where it didn't matter who was in charge. They always co-chaired together. They were able to get a lot of really great bipartisan policy done that way. So who knows? Maybe it's time for that here in Arizona.
And in terms of the issues the next legislature will deal with, the state's abortion law, or whatever that law is going to be pending Arizona Supreme Court action, that could come before the legislature. Neither law right now, the 15-week ban or the Civil War era ban, account for cases of rape or incest.
Right.
And so how could that play out?
Well, we would definitely need a Governor Katie Hobbs. I mean, you're not going to have any kind of movement on that, at least not in favor of abortion rights if you have Kari Lake in the governor's office. But if you have a split down at the legislature and you have Katie Hobbs, I think there is a possibility to have at least some kind of compromise legislation on there. It also means, I think, and this is really critical, is that we're not going to have the kind of attempts that we've had lately to try and disrupt the electoral process in this state. You're not going to have any legislation that's going to be trying to take away mail-in ballots. You're not going to have legislation where the legislators, instead of the voters, pick the next president. I mean, that, I think, in and of itself is huge. And that's why the legislature is so important.
And you brought up the possibility of more lawsuits arising from this election.
For sure.
I wonder about the possibility of the legislature governing by lawsuit or subpoena.
Well, I do think
possible.
The really interesting point, Bram, and I do think that there is a significant possibility that the legislature is going to go immediately to subpoenaing all sorts of records and filing all sorts of lawsuits. And it's going to be investigation and investigation and investigation. They're going to be fighting with the county supervisors. They're going to be fighting, with the new Secretary of State or whoever it is. It is going to be a complete cluster, as we used to say, without using profanity on your air. And it's really unfortunate, right? So maybe this balance will help a little bit. And I have to disagree with you, Julie, on one thing. I don't think that a Governor Lake and a Governor Hobbs will be so different when it comes to the conversation on abortion, because if you have a 30-30 split, you have to get leadership in your office and you have to say, this is what we're talking about today and this is what we're going to decide. And we're not opening the door until we come to a decision. And if both of them are willing to say, my role here is to enforce the law that's on the books, then I'm not sure we come out with that different of a outcome there.
You think that's possible?
I think if I were the governor, it would absolutely be possible.
Okay.
But that remains to be seen.
Okay,
that
well,
remains to be seen.
That wasn't in the cards, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Julie's shaking her
No,
head.
I think if you have a Katie Hobbs, I think she's going to be proactive in trying to get some legislation that entails some abortion rights. I think if you have Kari Lake, she's going to go ahead and let the courts figure it out, and she's not going to weigh in that respect.
All right, TBD, to be determined. Let's send it back to you guys.
All right, thank you so much, Bram. Our team coverage continues live in Scottsdale, where just a few moments ago, Kari Lake took the stage. Let's head out live to Team 12's Tram Mai. Hey, Tram.
Hey, Karibe, that's right. Actually, just shortly after 10, so just about 45 minutes ago or so, that is when Kari Lake finally addressed her supporters. They had been waiting all evening since doors had opened here at the Scottsdale Resort since 6 p.m. to hear her take the stage, and that she did. She energized the crowd. She asked them if they were ready for change, and they erupted in applause, and they yelled for Kari over and over. She also said that within hours, she predicts that she will win. She said the night is still early, that it's still too soon, but she is very confident that she will win. Take a listen to what else she had to say.
We have a movement. We have a movement, and we know it. Did you feel it? Did you feel that movement? You know, I did a lot of praying to God. I've been praying to God every day, all day. And I said to him, you make this victory come whatever way you want. If it comes decisive on election day, then bring it to us that way. If we have to fight through the BS and the garbage, then we will fight through the BS and the garbage.
Now, you just heard her talk about that movement. She was referring to the movement at her rallies just yesterday. She had crisscrossed Arizona from Prescott to down here in the Valley in Scottsdale and in Phoenix. That was the movement that she was referring to, really just energizing all her supporters to come out and vote. As governor, she said that the first thing she will do is restore honesty and no more corruption and incompetency in Arizona elections. Obviously, it got off to a bad start this morning on election day with the tabulation issues. We should also mention, too, just about 10 minutes ago, one of her representatives had come out on stage giving an election update, saying that Lake is leading in Yuma and Greenlee County, and that he also admitted that even though Hobbs is leading overall, that still, again, the night is still young. There's still over 100,000 votes still left to be counted. So he told the supporters to basically take a break, go get something to eat. But you can tell this room is still packed. A lot of people will probably be in here for the long haul. Again, the night's still young. Kari Lake is probably, I would think, going to hit the stage within the next couple of hours, too. So we'll wait and see. But for now, we're live in Scottsdale. Tram Mai, back to you.
Tram, thanks. Certainly the next time the votes drop, which could be within the next half hour, 45 minutes, things could change with Kari Lake and Katie Hobbs. We'll continue to track that.
That's right. We'll continue to track all the latest numbers and the updates throughout the entire night. Now, back here in the studio, our Team 12's William Pitts has been breaking down the numbers. And Will, what do you have to show us?
Well, right now I want to show you what it's looking like for the voters, who the voters are, how they voted. This right here, this is a map of the current voter tabulation. What this shows you is how many votes have been tabulated by each county. So Maricopa, obviously the darkest. We're talking about 863,000 votes. We know that is by far the largest amount of votes coming in from across the state. We're talking about Apache County, 11,000 votes. That's all that's been tabulated right now. Down here in Yuma County, we're talking about 33,803. Fairly small number. What they don't know right now, and they won't know until they know how many votes are counted, is how many are outstanding. So what is the breakdown of the registration, voter registration? This is voter registration from 2010 all the way over here to today. Now take a look what happened in 2020. Massive spike in voter registration. But in 2020, Democrats were number 2, Republicans number 1. That has now changed to today, where Republicans are number 1. Right under that is independents. Those are the swing votes that everybody wants to court. Democrats a distant third at this point. Now, how do people vote on Election Day? Well, they vote primarily by mail. Here's the Republicans. Early voting, 419,000 as of the primary. That's the only numbers we have from the primary. 419,000, 85,000 voted on Election Day. Democrats, no surprise, voted much more on the early vote than on Election Day. We're talking 334,000 voting the early vote and 19,000 on Election Day. Now, statewide, what's that break down to? A pretty big chunk, 759,000 doing the early vote, the mail-in vote, and only 106,000 in the primary voting on Election Day. Guys.
Apologize for messing up your last name there. I do know you. We've worked together for a long time.
You sure?
Thanks. Yes, Pitt. Yes.
Okay. Let's take a look at the numbers that we have. And again, these really haven't changed much. We're waiting for the next big drop of votes to come in. That could happen within the next half hour or so. But Katie Hobbs continues to hang on to her lead over Kari Lake by a wide margin. But again, this was from that first vote drop. And now the second vote drop, when it comes in, you could see a lot of Republican influence.
All right, let's take a look at the race for U.S. Senate. Mark Kelly is leading at this time, as he has been for the entire night. 57.1% of the votes that are coming in. Blake Masters is trailing 40.6%. This is for U.S. Senate race.
Secretary of State, it's Adrian Fontes with a wide lead over Mark Finchem, the far-right Republican. Fontes with, almost a 20-point lead over his Republican challenger, Finchem.
Now to the race for Arizona Attorney General Kris Mayes. She's been leading all night by about the same difference here from her Republican challenger, Abraham Hamadeh. Kris Mayes, she's bringing in 55.8%. Abraham Hamadeh at 44.2%. He is the Trump-endorsed candidate.
Arizona Superintendent of Public Instruction Kathy Hoffman leading Tom Horn. Kathy Hoffman has been the incumbent.
All right, Bram. So your final takeaways as we kind of round out the night. I mean, is this what you expected? Quickly.
Yes, but Democrats are holding their breath right now. Republicans are wondering, WTH. They're going to want, like, why do we ever agree to vote on, Election Day? Fun to watch if you're that far behind.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us. For Caribe and Bram, Mark Curtis. We'll send it back to NBC.